People in Marvel. My wife is the White Queen. Chapter 91. Love everything about you, including your soul. Open black lens bracket. Subscribe, close black lens bracket. No doubt. From the moment Hela confessed to Li Feng through the White Queen's body, Hela's heart and Hela's body belonged to Li Feng completely. So while Hela was waiting for Li Feng's reaction like a trial, Li Feng held the White Queen's body gently in his hands without any hesitation. I'm sure Emma, like you, is waiting for my answer. You can rest assured that no matter what, I will stand firmly by your side. Because I know, and so will you and Emma. A normal relationship is by no means a unilateral contribution by one party. That's not affection, that's support. Li Feng can accept Hela, or do anything for Emma. Likewise, Li Feng also believed that Hela and Emma would give up everything for 407. They love each other and support each other. They are not only lovers, but also relatives. They form a family, and their love for each other flows in each other's blood. In the year of meeting and falling in love with White Queen, Li Feng never asked the two of them to do anything for themselves. The same is true for Hela, even if Li Feng's ability can help her a lot. They love each other sincerely and will spontaneously pay for each other. This is the fundamental reason why Li Feng can hold his heart and ignore those Yingyingyanyans from the outside world. Whether it is Hela or White Queen, they are indispensable people, and they have already satisfied all Li Feng's imagination of a lover. Although Hela had already anticipated Li Feng's reaction, she knew in her heart that Li Feng's feelings for her would not be shaken by her past. But at this moment Hela was still moved. From birth to now, Hela has gone through a long time. But no one has ever believed in her like Li Feng, regardless of the reason. This kind of unconditional trust made Hela feel relieved, but at the same time moved him even more. At this moment, all of Hela's previous fears and worries were melted away like a snowfield illuminated by the sun. I trust you. Hela didn't say much, but looked into Li Feng's eyes and said affectionately. But I know it's not fair to Emma and I want to hear her thoughts. After the words fell, a touch of emerald green flashed in Hela's eyes, and the White Queen took over the body. Li Feng was taken aback when he heard this, then smiled and hugged White Queen tighter. If the two of them hadn't been too crazy last night, and Li Feng was worried that the White Queen's body would not be able to take it anymore, something indescribable would happen next. But this is actually not important. Sometimes life not only needs passion, but also requires plainness to ferment. Both Li Feng and White Queen did not move, but quietly enjoyed the tranquility of the moment. Hela's confession was already expected by Li Feng, and it was not unexpected. Overall, this is more like a small episode in the lives of the two. Apart from making the relationship between the two more inseparable, there is no other change. Li Feng will still prepare delicious food for the White Queen every day, and will still enjoy the cold and shy appearance of White Queen molesting Hela after agreeing to Hela taking over her body. Definitely, the White Queen and Hela will not have any differences. When Li Feng is not around, they are like sisters. They often admire their figures in the mirror, which makes the relationship between them better and better. More and more fit. However, it is worth mentioning that after the thorough confession, White Queen became much happier. At the very least, now and then I can turn against the guest and tease Li Feng a bit. Although Li Feng seized the opportunity to bully them severely in most cases, both of them enjoyed it. While the relationship between Li Feng, Hela, and Emma is heating up rapidly, the outside world is also undergoing earth-shaking changes. With the formation of the Avengers and the departure of Galactus, the plot of Iron Man 2 Inches began. Tony Stark, who was fooling around with Thor all day long, was attacked at the racing track just like the plot. Besides, what broke Tony even more was that his time was numbered. Palladium metal poisoning nearly pronounced Tony's death sentence. If we don't find a new element to replace palladium metal, Tony's time may be numbered. Regarding this problem, although Li Feng knew about it, he did not intervene. Because Tony's father has arranged everything long ago, Tony will eventually solve it and complete the transformation from a child who doesn't grow up to a superhero. It can be said that this near-death experience was the main reason for Tony's complete metamorphosis. Li Feng doesn't want to interfere too much with the plot, he is more like an observer, a spectator, watching everything happening in the Marvel world up close. Just like in the Marvel world, those observers all over the universe are the same. In addition, there is another news that Li Feng is very concerned about. Loki, the descendant of the giants of Jotunheim, came to Earth and appeared before the eyes of the world. More importantly, the appearance of Loki also brought another very important thing, Tesseract. Li Feng knows the plot clearly, so he knows that once the Tesseract appears on the Earth, the plot will enter a new node. More importantly, there is an artifact called Space Gem in Tesseract. The unearthing of Loki and Tesseract symbolizes that the Marvel world has officially entered the prosperous age of superhero. After that, superhero will explode like a blowout on a large scale. The most exciting era in the Marvel world has just begun. At the same time, a certain purple sweet potato spirit who is still wandering in the universe also started the journey of gaining his own destiny. Thanos, the mad titan of the Eternal 3.1 family. I am eager to collect all 6 infinite gems and fulfill my long-cherished wish that I have pursued all my life. A gorgeous and dangerous era is coming. At the same time, after confessing to Li Feng, Hela was pulled into the illusion by Odin again. Looking at the divine face in front of him, but which he hated so much, Hela took a deep breath, trying to restrain the urge to stab with a sword, and calmed down. She clearly knew that even if she attacked Odin here, it would not cause any harm, and would be a waste of effort. What are you doing again? Kill me. Or do you want to take me away by force? I know your divine body can't get out of Asgard, don't waste your time. Chapter 92 She is my queen. Please subscribe, close black lens bracket. Hela's face was indifferent, and she didn't have even the slightest affection for this father who tried to control her repeatedly. Even though he is the god who commands the 9 realms, he is still not a qualified father. Hela firmly believes in this. Hela, my daughter, god of death. If I said that I would like you to return to Asgard and succeed the lord of the temple, how would you choose? Odin's first words made Hela's face solemn and shocked. She couldn't even believe it, these words came from Odin's mouth. Could it be that Odin finally figured it out and reversed that stubborn character? That's not something Odin would say on a normal day. Are you begging me for mercy? Begging me not to kill you? Hela sneered and questioned. She didn't understand at all what was Odin's reason for bringing this up. No, I just need a good heir. Currently, which one are you most suitable for? If you can complete my test, I will give you a chance. As for the past in 2007, I can selectively forget about it. Odin said to Hela with a kind face. Between the lines, it is convincing. At least for this reason, Hela is somewhat convinced. Because of Thor's performance, she also hears about it in the news and White Queen's mutant minions these days. It's not that Thor's performance is not good, but Thor at this stage does not have the character that Thor should have. Instead, he is like a mutant with a special ability, without any Shen charm. Although Hela has never met Thor, she knows the brother's itinerary very well. Going in and out of brothels with playboys, meeting female celebrities everywhere, and having spring dinners every night is fine. He is still addicted to alcohol, and has no ambition to become stronger. To put it boldly, Thor's brain at this point is full of muscles and has no brain at all. It is precisely because of this that Hela is willing to believe the reason Odin said. After all, compared with an unmotivated heir, Hela, who once won the title of God of Death, through her own efforts, is obviously more suitable. Seeing that Hela was silent, with hesitation in her expression, Odin knew that she was moved. She didn't agree, but she didn't object either, did she? That's enough. Therefore, Odin stopped hesitation, and said, My daughter, I know you have always wanted to go back to Asgard, you might as well listen to your father. This test is actually very simple, and it can be done with your ability. Kill that mortal with you, he has stained the noble blood of Asgard. As long as you are willing to kill him, then my throne and my scepter will all belong to you. And you will also become the only goddess in the entire 9 realms for thousands of years. After laying the groundwork for so long, Odin finally bared his fangs. Hela, daughter, have you met? Don't you have endless obsession with the throne of God? Father agrees with your opportunity. And the conditions are extremely simple. You only need to kill a mortal, which is not difficult for you at all, is it? It was just beyond Odin's expectation that Hela, who was originally calm, turned even colder after hearing this, and the murderous intent condensed into a substantial frost all over her body. The illusion trembled like ripples. The terrifying killing intent made Odin's heart tense. Odin didn't understand why Hela burst out with such a strong killing intent after listening to his own conditions. In Odin's eyes, his condition is actually not too much. Think about it, you only need to kill a mortal to become a god king. What a bargain this is for the obsessed Hela. Unfortunately, what Odin doesn't know is how important Li Feng is in Hela's heart now. Odin, did you know that he was the only light that shone through my long dark life? I can give up everything for him, even the god king of the 9 realms. Hela's aura is fully on, the former goddess of death has returned. Even Odin felt quite oppressed by that terrifying divine power. What makes Odin even more unbelievable is that Hela values Li Feng. The only light. The mortal. Although he owes and disappoints Hela and Odin, he is completely enraged at the moment. Damn it, he is a father, but his daughter treats him as an enemy. On the contrary, a damn mortal has occupied all of my daughter's heart. For the first time, he felt a sense of frustration, a feeling that he had lost. But more, it was the killing intent towards Li Feng. This damned mortal not only polluted the blood of the Odinson family, but also polluted Hela's heart. Before Odin could express any opinion, Hela continued, I aspire to be the god king of the 9 realms, that is the position I deserve. But I will not bow to you, I will use my ability to empty back what should belong to me. Hela's meaning is obvious, she aspires to become the god king of the 9 realms, using her own means and rebellious methods. This is already a declaration of war, the second declaration of war. At this moment, Odin completely gave up on Hela. This child has completely lost his feelings for him and has become the biggest trouble for Asgard. You will regret this. Odin said coldly, then ended the illusion. Hela doesn't care about 133, the real decisive battle is never in the illusion. Asgard, she is bound to go back and take back everything she lost. Fighting and scrambling, these are the fine traditions of Asgard, and Hela has also perfectly inherited this. In fact, Odin's position as the king of gods originally did not come right. Few people know that Odin has 2 brothers, an older brother and a younger brother. And at the beginning, Odin was not the first heir to the throne of God King, his elder brother was. It's just Odin's potential that puts the God King in suspense. Then, the bloody battle for the throne began. The son kills the father, although the being. Odin's elder brother killed Odin's father, that is, the previous generation of God King usurped the position of God King. Then, Odin killed his own brother and snatched the throne of God King. Compared with what Odin did, Hela's operation can only be regarded as a basic operation. After returning to reality again, Hela saw Li Feng standing in front of her. I'm fine. Facing Li Feng's concerned eyes, Hela said. Then, Hela thought of the conversation with Odin before, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. It's really ridiculous to expect her to kill Li Feng for the sake of becoming a god king. Hela would rather kill Odin, never get involved in the throne of God King, and it is impossible to take action against Li Feng. Chapter 93 Goodbye Ancient One Magician Open black lens bracket Please subscribe, close black lens bracket. But when it comes to the position of God King, Hela does have plans to return to Asgard. Odin has sat on the God King for long enough, it's time for a replacement. Thinking of this, Hela shared her thoughts with Li Feng. Now she doesn't have to hide herself in front of Li Feng, she can speak her mind. After hearing Hela's plan to return to Asgard, Li Feng nodded without refusing. It just so happened that he also had an account to settle with Odin. Li Feng has a bad temper. Anyone who attacks him is his enemy and will face his counterattack. Odin is no exception. It is impossible for Li Feng to let him go after showing his killing intent to Li Feng. Time to settle accounts with Odin, too. The couple hit it off immediately, and immediately decided to go to Asgard to ask Odin to settle the debt. As for the position of God King, Hela is sure to win. She believes that after such a long period of dormancy, she already has the strength to challenge Li Ding. In fact, Hela, who can crush Mjolnir with bare hands, definitely has the ability to pose a great threat to Odin. Odin is strong, but Hela is not weak either. By the way, if you are the king of Asgard, then what am I? Suddenly, Li Feng thought of a question and asked Hela. Anyway, Li Feng has no idea about the position of the Asgard temple. He is not interested in being a leader. But in this way, his position is a bit awkward. Lover of the King of the Nine Realms. After Hela heard Li Feng's words, a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. My dear, then you are my queen. Hela smiled proudly. The United States, the capital. Shield. Thor has been feeling unlucky lately. After coming to Earth, he met a lot of interesting souls, especially the son-in-law named Tony Stark, and the two of them had a wonderful time. But before he was addicted, Thor received a message from Asgard, asking him to return to Asgard immediately without stopping for a moment. This order is said to have been issued by Odin himself. Thor is not a fool either. He can guess that the reason for this is probably because Odin saw everything he did on Earth. This also means that Odin is going to settle accounts with him. For his father, Thor respects and fears him at the same time. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, Thor has been beaten rarely since he was a child. Hitting and hitting, Thor got used to it. Besides, he didn't cause a big disaster. Didn't he just play around a bit? Didn't he just sleep with a few female celebrities? Before Odin married his mother, he was the king of God with countless daughters, so he shouldn't be too angry, right? With this in mind, Thor bid farewell to his good friend Tony Stark and a group of Avengers brothers, and directly contacted Heimdall to let him open Bifrost. Soon, Heimdall lowered Bifrost and took Thor back to Asgard smoothly. Just as soon as he returned to the main hall of Asgard, Thor realized the seriousness of the matter. Sitting on the throne of God, Odin is not only furious about what he has done on Earth, but also disappointed. Disappointed that my son is actually such an unmotivated waste, not only does not have the strong nature of a qualified heir, even Asgard does not want to return to this very perimeter. He felt that Asgard was not far from destruction. Even Frigga, the kind mother who has always loved Thor very much, looked at Thor with a slight hatred of iron and steel in at the moment. Frigga has never doubted Thor's excellence. In fact, Thor is indeed a good boy. He is brave, strong, and full of integrity. Thor is a good man, but he is not a good heir to Asgard, nor does he have the determination to lead the Nine Realms. He is too simple. Even if Thor can have 1/3 of Hela's ambition, Frigga and Odin will be satisfied. In fact, Thor has indeed grown in the future. Thor 3 inches has metamorphosed into a qualified king. But unfortunately, the price of this metamorphosis is too high. Parents died, homes were destroyed, and the people of Asgard were massacred. The growth established in the tragedy, one can imagine how painful Thor will be in the future. But now that there is one more Li Feng, there are many more variables in Thor's future. Maybe it won't be as painful as in the original book, or maybe it will be darker. Father, did I do something wrong again? At the moment Thor, who didn't know that his life was about to be tragic, looked at Odin cautiously and asked. Odin sighed, closed his eyes and adjusted his mentality before looking at Thor again. Your matter, I will settle accounts with you later. As for now, you go and gather the troops, the enemy is coming. Odin said to Thor that the enemy he said was naturally Hela. Since the end of the previous illusion, Odin knew that Hela would definitely return to Asgard. And it won't be too late, it will definitely be while he is still alive. Because Odin knew that Hela cared more about taking revenge on himself than being the king of gods. That's why he called Thor back, just to meet the coming Hela. As for Thor, we can only expect him to grow up in the future. Asgard, which was once extremely brilliant, is now facing a major crisis. As Asgard prepares for a great war, Li Feng came to Kamar Taj with Hela. That's right, The purpose of their coming here is to find Sorcerer Supreme. Ancient One was sitting in the hall drinking tea, and was not surprised by the arrival of Li Feng and his wife. She was always so calm and full of guru demeanor. You too, I don't know why you are looking for me. Ancient One had a smile on his face. For this mysterious guy like Li Feng, she still has a lot of respect. After all, Li Feng saved the earth before. Although she is the only one who knows about it. Ancient One Magician, I know that you have a high level of attainment in space magic, and I really want to ask you for a favor this time. Hope you can open a passage to Asgard. Li Feng said to Ancient One with a calm face. Although Li Feng doesn't have a good impression of Ancient One, he must have the attitude of asking for help when he asks for help. And Ancient One has to say that this is a real unsung hero who should be respected. You'd be hard-pressed to find a magician's black spot from any angle. Asgard. Are you going to Asgard to compete for the god position? Ancient One glanced at the White Queen at the side, and quickly sensed that something was wrong, and naturally guessed Hela's identity. Chapter 94 Attack, Asgard, please subscribe, close black lens bracket. Combined with the recent fluctuations she has noticed through the dark power, it is also reasonable to definitely guess the purpose of Hela and Li Feng. Odin's time is approaching. And Li Feng rushed to Asgard at this time, making it clear that he was going to Odin, the god king of Asgard. In fact, this is also normal. Sorcerer Supreme also knew about the previous rebellion in Asgard. After all, Hela was sealed on the earth back then. In addition, Li Feng went to trouble Odin, and Ancient One Magician was no surprise. Odin had looked for her before, hoping to erase this mortal. It's just that the Ancient One refused, only promising that Odin would teach the mortal some lessons. But in fact, Ancient One just wanted to trap Li Feng and make Li Feng owe her a favor. As for being an enemy of Li Feng, Ancient One is not crazy yet. Ancient One Magician, don't worry about this matter, it has nothing to do with the earth. Hela also stood up at this time and said to Ancient One. The best way to travel to Asgard from Earth is definitely via Bifrost. But Asgard obviously won't teleport the two of them there, so they can only find other ways. For example, it is a good idea to seek help from Sorcerer Supreme. Okay, as you wish. Ancient One hesitated for a few seconds, nodded slightly, did not refuse, and agreed to send Li Feng and Hela to Asgard. 570 As for whether doing so will bring any harm to Odin, Ancient One doesn't care. Because Ancient One knew that Odin, like himself, would die, and their era should be over. Li Feng can find him, so is it not a metaphor destined by heaven? Then, in front of Li Feng and his wife, Ancient One reached out and opened a huge amount of golden portal. On the other side of the portal is Bifrost in Asgard. Li Feng and Hela can reach Asgard just by crossing this portal. Li Feng, I still have to say, if you are interested, you can come to me anytime to learn the magic of Kamar Taj. The promises I made to you are valid at any time. You are a very good earthling, better than everyone I have ever met. After opening the portal, Ancient One smiled and said to Li Feng. This was originally the plan of Ancient One. Even if Li Feng cannot become a member of Kamar Taj, at least they must form a good relationship. For a strong person like Li Feng, it is much better to be a friend than an enemy. If there is a chance, I will come to ask for advice. Li Feng also nodded. Ahag. He thought about it carefully. Now that he has the time gem, if he has the opportunity, he must come and learn it. It may not be a bad thing to integrate magic and time gem. Especially since the Tesseract has already appeared on Earth, something will definitely happen by then, and it is always good to be more prepared. Might as well be the knife space gem as a result. That stuff isn't much worse than the time gem. And the space gem is stronger, easier to use, and the distance it can transmit is also more realistic. Maybe one day in the future, you can collect all 6 infinite gems to play. Definitely, those are for later. Li Feng and Hela didn't have a hesitation, they directly stepped into the teleporters and entered Asgard's territory. The two looked at each other, and they both saw a coldness in each other's eyes. Asgard. On Bifrost, Thor stood ready. Because in front of him, a portal is opening. It didn't take long for two figures to step over the teleporters and set foot on Bifrost. Li Feng. Why are you? Thor, who originally thought it would be the enemy, looked at the two people who came out of the portal and asked in surprise. Because it was Li Feng and his wife who came out of the portal. Don't forget, Li Feng knew Thor at the party hosted by Tony Stark. Li Feng still knew Hela's true identity from Thor's mouth. So Li Feng was a little surprised when he saw Thor. Logically speaking, shouldn't my brother-in-law be on Earth? You guys know each other. Hela is also a little surprised, why Li Feng actually knows this good-for-nothing brother. And, it looks like they're still friends. It seems that Li Feng needs to be reminded not to play with Shangzi. Meet once, we can be regarded as friends. Li Feng didn't explain much, because they will not be friends soon. Rather, it is likely to become Thor's father-killing enemy. At this time, Hela no longer suppressed herself. After returning to the familiar land of Asgard, Hela felt that she had an endless field of force again. As long as she stands on this land, she can constantly improve her own power. The heart of the White Queen. Emma, can I take full control of your body? Next, I'm going to Chaos Realm to regain my divine body. Sister Hela, I believe in you, we must protect our husband well. Emma's worried voice sounded quickly. Don't worry, leave it to my sister. Hela laughed loudly, and then his whole body was shrouded in crystal-clear diamond green light, and 2 seconds later, in front of everyone, he rolled up his dark green long hair and pinned it over his head. A crown with a strange shape appeared on Hela's head. Even Hela's clothes changed from a decent black dress to a set of dark green diamond armor. White Queen's diamond form plus Hela Death God's soul body. The two integrate, beautiful as crown jade. And this is Hela's true appearance, and it is also a side that Li Feng has never seen. True Asgard, goddess of death. Feeling the huge pressure emanating from Hela, Thor's heart also became dignified. At this moment, he guessed Hela's identity. His sister, who has never been masked, is now Asgard's greatest enemy. A rebel who intends to rebel against the usurper. Where's Odin? Why doesn't he come out? Is it possible that he is afraid? After returning to a familiar place, Hela also restored her original character. She is a very mad god, domineering without explanation. Only when facing Li Feng, will she reveal the posture of her little daughter. In front of other people, she has never been aggressive. Odin, get out of here. Hela's voice was like a bell, resounding through the sky. However, there was no response. My dear sister, don't shout, father won't see you, he ordered me to stop you. Thor took a deep breath, clenched the Mjolnir in his hand, and stood in front of Hela. In his eyes, there is a touch of reluctance. After all, no matter what, he still has a little respect for Hela, a sister he has never met. But his father's life is like a mountain, and he cannot disobey it. Especially, in the realm of Asgard, he has a mission. Chapter 95 The Real Goddess of Death Open black lens bracket Please subscribe, close black lens bracket. There is no doubt that Hela, who fully displayed the aura of the goddess of death, brought Thor unimaginable pressure. Even, not weaker than facing Odin. It's not that Hela is stronger than Aogong, but that Aogong would not release such a terrifying killing intent on Thor. That's right. Thor is 100% sure. Hela wants to kill herself. Moreover, this determination is very great. However, although Thor's personality is a little simpler, but in terms of courage, there is absolutely nothing to say. He is a fearless warrior who never thought of backing down from his enemies, let alone now Tilda. Therefore, after he felt the killing intent released by Hela, Thor determined that Hela was his enemy. He stopped hesitation, and directly threw the Mjolnir in his hand, and smashed it towards Hela's head. Needless to say, using the trick of Mjolnir to hit people, Thor can be said to be very sophisticated, and this trick can always have a good effect when facing the Hulk. Unfortunately, little does Thor know, his opponent is a god who has no fear of Mjolnir. Facing Mjolnir galloping towards with terrifying divine power, Hela showed a sneer at the corner of her mouth. When Mjolnir was about to hit her, she stretched out her left hand and firmly fixed the flying Mjolnir. Hiss. Watching Mjolnir struggling in Hela's hand but unable to escape, Thor's eyes widened in disbelief. This scene. Ellipsis. It's too weird. Thor hadn't imagined this happening anyway. He knows that he is unlikely to be Hela's opponent, but it can't be too much difference, right? What's the matter? Can you fight a little bit? But now this scene gave him too much impact. In his impression, it is very unlikely that 1 out of 100 people can catch Mjolnir. But now, he was actually caught by his sister. You know, Mjolnir is an artifact with divine power. Among them, there is also the blessing of Odin's power, which will not be too far behind the eternal gun in Odin's hand, right? In Thor's impression, ordinary opponents, not to mention holding Mjolnir like Hela, may be difficult to even shake. He also specially tested on the earth, even if it is a big man like Hulk, he can't shake Mjolnir at all. Those who cannot obtain the approval of Mjolnir cannot afford the hammer at all. But Hela broke this common sense. Normally speaking, with Hela's bloodthirsty personality, Mjolnir would definitely not be able to approve her. The current scene can only illustrate one point. That is, Hela can completely suppress Mjolnir's divine power and control it in her own hands by virtue of her powerful strength. This is true. This is impossible. After Thor thought of this possibility, he couldn't help blurting out. It was hard for him to believe that his sister, whom he had never met, could actually control Mjolnir as he wished. For the divine power contained in Mjolnir, Thor feels the deepest. When he lost Mjolnir's approval, no matter how much strength he used, he couldn't shake it. After hearing Thor's words, a strong disdain flashed in Hela's eyes. To be honest, Thor's performance made her a little sick. I don't know how Odin raised his younger brother. Is it possible to prevent him from following his own mistakes and raise him like a flower in a greenhouse? It was too disappointing. My stupid brother. You don't even know what 10,000 is. Facing Thor's disbelief, Hela raised the corner of her mouth and sneered. Then, her 5 slender and white fingers suddenly exerted force. She's gonna crush Mjolnir. Hela is no stranger to Mjolnir. Because in the early days, this hammer was used by her. But Hela is completely different from Thor. She has always been the goddess of death, not the goddess of hammers. In her eyes, Mjolnir is just a weapon that is readily available. She has never relied on Mjolnir, let alone rely on his original power. The reason why she is famous in the 9 realms is entirely because of her own strength. Thor, on the other hand, is different. Although Mjolnir is his powerful help, it has also become a shackle that he cannot go further. The power of God's hammer is the root of Thor's delay in awakening his own divine power. Under Thor's desperate eyes, Hela's fingers closed, and fine lines visible to the naked eye appeared on Mjolnir. 0. Seeking flowers. This artifact carefully forged by Odin is at risk of being destroyed for the first time after going through a long campaign and gaining a great reputation. Hela didn't show mercy, the power on his left hand was still increasing constantly. Just relying on the sole power of the god of death is enough to destroy this artifact. Don't forget, the current Hela has not returned to the body of God. This is indeed the case, as Hela's power continues to increase, Mjolnir's cracks are also expanding, and the cobweb-like cracks are revealed one by one. Finally, with a huge amounts of crisp sound, a mass of terrifying lightning was released from the surface of Mjolnir like a thunderstorm. 2 seconds later. 0. Mjolnir shattered, turned into a pile of scattered iron blocks, and fell in front of Thor. The only thing that can be called intact is probably the handle of Mjolnir. After seeing Mjolnir shattered, Hela looked at Thor with a cruel look, very satisfied with the despair and disbelief on the other's face. I heard that you called God. I see, you are still called the Hammer God. Hela sneered, her face full of sarcasm. At this moment, the goddess of death, who traversed the 9 realms, finally bared her fangs. Li Feng was behind Hela, watching this scene, his eyes were a little strange. This is the first time he has seen Hela like this. Domineering, cold, powerful and confident. As expected of the goddess of death. As for what Hela did, Li Feng actually didn't dislike it. This is not difficult to understand. First of all, Hela is his wife. No matter what the wife does, it is definitely right. Secondly, Li Feng was not originally a bitch of the Holy Mother, and the reason why Hela returned to Asgard for revenge was not because Odin turned his face and refused to recognize anyone and beat her into the dungeon. If Hela hadn't escaped, she would never have seen the sun. What kind of damage is this? In addition, after learning about Hela's past, Li Feng really feels that Hela has absolutely no problem doing anything excessive to Asgard. No one is born a villain, and you need a reason to do evil. It is impossible for Hela to come to this point for no reason. Chapter 96 Thor in #039. S Tragedy Open Black Lens Bracket Subscribe, Close Black Lens Bracket. Odin's approach, so disappointing. It can only be said that Odin and Asgard are to blame for today's bad results. There is a saying that you will have to pay back sooner or later. Asgard, the same applies. No one can blame anyone. Besides, Li Feng has not experienced what Hela has experienced, so he is not qualified to judge Hela's behavior at all. Don't persuade others to be kind without others suffering. This approach is disgusting. At the moment, after Hela crushed Mjolnir, he didn't give Thor a chance to react, but walked slowly towards Thor step by step. At the same time, with every step she took, a diamond blade hovered around her, coated with a layer of purple light of death, and the pressure was enormous. She wants to teach Thor, this stupid brother, what is cruelty in the world. 273 also quickly adjusted his mood. Although he didn't have the confidence in his heart, he didn't flinch. After roaring and emboldening himself, Thor clenched his fists and rushed towards Hela. He is Thor of Asgard, the fearless warrior. How can I back down? However, before he came in front of Hela, the diamond blade suspended around Hela suddenly flew out, piercing Thor's thigh and left shoulder directly at an extremely fast speed. Put him in the middle of the sky. In front of Hela, who has experienced the Nine Realms War, Thor is immature like a child. However, even though his body was severely injured, Thor still gritted his teeth and endured the pain without shouting. His will is indeed commendable, but this does not change the situation under his strength. Hela came to Thor step by step, each step gave Thor huge amounts of pressure. You're not sitting still, though. The moment Hela came in front of him, he gritted his teeth suddenly, and with his uninjured right hand, he clenched his fist and threw it at Hela. It's just that he was directly caught by Hela in this attack, and his right hand seemed to be clamped by steel clamps, unable to move. My dear brother, I am a little disappointed that you are weak. When I was your age, I was able to defeat 100 with one. Odin hasn't forced you to slaughter on the battlefield, has he? Then you are really pitiful. Have you seen the giants of Jotunheim? Know how they deal with the warriors of Asgard? Hela controlled Thor's left arm disdainfully, and raised it with one hand, snapping the bones in his left arm. Thor let out a faint growl. The bones of his body are divine bones. Hela, it just broke. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and his face was extremely hideous. Forced to slaughter opponents on the battlefield. Is this Hela's past? Before Thor could figure out the problem, Hela clenched his right arm again, and then twisted it again. The penetrating sound of bones colliding sounded again. Thor's right hand was directly crippled by Hela. This time Thor couldn't suppress the pain anymore, and screamed directly. But as soon as the shout came out, it was interrupted by Hela holding his head and hitting Bifrost hard. When I was very young, I was forced to learn to fight, learn to kill, and learn to compete for life and death with those evil creatures from the Nine Realms. You should be glad I saved you from this hell. Without me, the person sitting on the throne of Asgard today would not be Odin. However, this is also your sorrow. Too comfortable a life has made you weak. As if to vent part of the hatred towards Odin on Thor, every time Hela strikes, it is extremely ruthless. No matter how strong Thor was, at the moment he was lying on the ground without even the slightest strength left to struggle. At the same time, Thor kept thinking about what Hela said in his mind. For the first time in his life, his worship of his father was shaken. He realizes that maybe his father, King Odin, is not the kind and loving king he thought. Isn't the existence of Hela the best evidence? In fact, it is precisely because of the failure of Hela that Odin changed the way of training Thor. Otherwise, if the experiences that Hela had suffered were reproduced on Thor, his situation would not be much better than Hela. No one is born accustomed to killing. Hela was also transformed from a blank sheet of paper to what it is now by Odin step by step. When the faith in Thor's heart began to shake, Hela did not stop and continued to ravage his thoughts. She grabbed Thor by the collar, pulled Thor up, and then slammed on Bifrost hard. But just then, a huge amount of great sword came galloping from afar, packed with terrifying divine power, and it was about to strike Hela. Hela reacted at that moment, stretched out her hand to block the big sword out of thin air, turned around slowly, and looked at the place where the big sword flew. I saw Heimdall, who was in charge of guarding Bifrost, swooping down from Bifrost with a group of Asgard soldiers. Seeing this scene, Hela didn't intend to continue beating Thor, but kicked him away, and then walked towards Heimdall and the others. At this moment, Hela perfectly interpreted what a big villain is. His aura directly crushed everyone, and he had a terrifying aura of one enemy against 10,000, like a general who controls thousands of people. However, what Hela, who was fighting, didn't notice was that Thor, who had been beaten with a blurred will, flashed a few dark blue thunder powers in his empty eyes. The power that lurks in Thor's body and truly belongs to him has finally begun to recover. In the original plot, Thor was also beaten up by Hela before he awakened the power of Thor that really belonged to him. At that moment, he was the real Thor of Asgard. After that, there was Thor who came down from the sky in Avengers Alliance 3 inches with a Stormbreaker in hand. On the other hand, on Hela's side, the 2.6 Asgard warriors led by Heimdall quickly fought with her. However, just relying on these people alone cannot withstand Hela's terrifying aura. With almost every movement, Hela can easily harvest the lives of several Asgard soldiers. Precise and elegant, this is the best interpretation of Hela. Her every move makes Li Feng seem to appreciate the art of killing. Soon, those warriors of Asgard were all wiped out, and every soldier had a diamond blade with the power of death stuck in his body. Only Heimdall was left struggling under Hela's attack. In the absence of Odin, Asgard has no threat to Hela. Heimdall, my former right-wing guard. You are still alive. Looking at Heimdall, who couldn't get close to her with all her strength, Hela smiled and said to Heimdall. Chapter 97 Odin vs. Hela. Please subscribe, close black lens bracket. As an old man who followed Odin, Heimdall knew Hela. Heimdall had served as Hela's right guard during a long-ago campaign against one of the 9 realms. Although it was only for a while, he also clearly understood that with his own strength, he couldn't compete with Hela at all. Facing Hela's old reminiscence, Heimdall didn't dare to answer distractedly, because Hela's aura was too terrifying, and he would die if he was not careful. Compared with a monster-level existence like Hela, his divine power is nothing at all. Now the only hope of Heimdall is to be able to hold on until Odin comes quickly, otherwise the whole of Asgard can't resist Hela at all. Just when Hela was almost idling in the garden, pushing Heimdall to a corner, the strongest Asgard finally arrived. Divine power instantly spread throughout Bifrost. Stop, my daughter, Hela. This old voice was not loud, but it spread throughout Asgard, as if it sounded from everyone's heart. 07 Hela heard the words, stopped the movements in her hands, and turned her eyes to the other side of Bifrost, which is where the main hall of Asgard is located. In that place, Odin is suspended in the air, holding the Spear of Eternity, looking at Hela indifferently. Beside Odin, Frigg also looked at Hela with an inexplicable sadness in his eyes. It's time to settle accounts. Hela let go of Heimdall, who could be killed at any time, suspended several diamond blades around again, and walked towards Odin step by step. This meeting is completely different from the previous illusion. This time, it's really about life and death. This is also the first time that Li Feng has seen the real Odin, although it looks very dazzling. But this King of God, who has ruled the 9 realms for tens of thousands of years, looks very old now, even his back is slightly bent. At a glance, he was no different from an ordinary old man on Earth. But such a plain-looking person is the undisputed overlord of the 9 realms. God King Odin. While Li Feng was looking at Ao Gong, Odin was also looking at him. When he recognized Li Feng as the mortal who broke his illusion, Odin's only one eye was filled with murderous intent. If you want to say who is the person Odin hates the most, it is definitely Li Feng. This lowly creature in the lower realm not only slept with his daughter, but also destroyed his duplication and slapped himself in the face. Odin couldn't swallow this breath without breaking Li Feng into 10,000 pieces. What's more, what Odin didn't expect was that this bold and lowly creature would dare to come to his door. This clearly shows that he, the Lord of the 9 realms, is not taken seriously. What Li Feng didn't know at all was that even just standing behind Hela and doing nothing was enough to attract Odin's hatred. There is no doubt that he is definitely the person with the highest hatred value in the field. But to Li Feng, this is not a terrible thing. He came here with Hela today, originally to support Hela. For Odin, Li Feng actually didn't have any hostility, and definitely didn't have any good feelings either. If Odin is going to put himself to death because of his relationship with Hela, then there is no need to talk about it. Coupled with Odin's aloof judgment attitude before, it is even more impossible for Li Feng to have any good looks towards Odin. No matter how good-tempered Li Feng was, he couldn't forgive such an arrogant guy who had murderous intentions towards him. So when I came to Asgard this time, in addition to protecting Hela from accidents, I actually planned to solve the threat of Odin. Therefore, when Odin came forward, Li Feng had already acted, planning to use the power of the Steppenwolf template to test this old guy. However, there is someone who moves faster than Li Feng, and that is Hela. If anyone in the 9 realms wants Odin to die more, it must be Hela. The hatred between the two is completely different from Li Feng. It was caused by Odin's betrayals over the long years. If there is even a slight possibility of Li Feng reconciling with Odin, then there is basically no chance of reconciliation between Hela and Odin. In short, in Hela's view, Ao Gong must die. Hela, with the diamond blade infused with the power of death suspended all over his body, swooped towards Odin at an extremely fast speed, and the dark and huge soul power filled Hela's body. After all, Odin is not a weakling like Thor and Heimdall, and Hela knows this too. Therefore, when facing Odin, Hela didn't hold back at all, and just went all out when he came up. His own divine power is not reserved at all. When she ran away from Thor before, she still had a lot of strength left. Seeing Hela rushing towards him with soaring killing intent, Odin sighed. Do you regret it? Yes, there is a little bit. However, how high is useless now. Odin clearly knows that Hela has grown beyond his control, and even if he admits his mistake now, Hela will never forgive himself. Moreover, his pride as the king of God does not allow him to bow his head and admit his mistakes. Bring it on, my daughter. Let me see how strong you are. Therefore, Odin held the eternal spear in his hand, roared a few times, and met the rushing Hela. Odin at this moment, where is the 450 still a little old? That stalwart figure is even faster than Hela. Holding the eternal spear in his hand, he stabbed fiercely at Hela. A life-and-death battle broke out between the father and daughter. In fact, many people have the illusion that Odin's strength is average, at least in the movie, he is not as outstanding as Hela. If you carefully read Odin's record, you would never say that. What kind of powerful means is it to suppress the 9 realms, make the other gods of the 9 realms bow their heads and admit to being ruled by Asgard? In addition, Odin even defeated Surta in his prime, taking the eternal fire into his treasury. Odin in the most powerful period almost overwhelmed the entire civilization in the 9 realms. The most important thing is, Odin once faced the Celestial Group, and under the siege, killed a member and escaped successfully. This record is rarely known. A long time ago, the Celestial Group planned to use the 9 realms as a testing ground, but Odin resisted. At that time, Odin, wearing the destroyer armor and holding the eternal spear, launched a bloody battle with the ancient god group, and the 9 realms were in turmoil. The final outcome was that Ao Gong was seriously injured, and the Tension group lost a member, and was even escaped by him. Chapter 98 Odin and Hash-039's terrifying strike. Open black lens bracket. Please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. This battle also completely established Odin's position in the 9 realms, and the 9 realms escaped the pitiful end of being used as a petri dish by the ancient god group. Therefore, it can be said that Ao Gong's current reputation, just like Hela, was achieved by itself. He can definitely be called the most powerful god-king in the history of Asgard. Even if it is as strong as Hela, when facing Odin, it can't take the slightest advantage. So not long after the battle on Bifrost, Hela fell into a disadvantage. Her combat experience accumulated on the battlefield seemed immature in front of Odin. The reason for this is that Odin has experienced many times more battles than Hela. Boom! With a terrifying bang, Odin swung the eternal spear in his hand and knocked Hela into the air. That powerful force caused violent fluctuations in the void. However, Hela is not without resistance ability. This level of attack can't put her to death at all. After realizing that he and Odin competed in supernatural power, close combat could not take advantage, Hela quickly changed his strategy. Next moment, a thick and dark divine power was released from Hela's body. This is the divine power of death, and wherever it goes, even the space is distorted. Along with it, there is also the huge world displayed by Hela. Field of Death. This is the kingdom of death constructed by Hela's soul power and death power. In the entire country, the souls of countless creatures wailed and roared, and all kinds of strange monsters composed of beings from the 9 realms struggled and crawled on the ground. Seeing this scene, Odin finally became serious. Facing Hela, who was going all out, he had to take it seriously. Seeing Hela, who summoned his own death domain, Odin took a deep breath and raised the eternal spear in his hand. At this moment, a terrifying and huge divine power gathered towards the peak of the eternal spear. Then, he aimed at Hela and the field of death behind her, and threw it directly. The eternal spear, carrying the power of a superstar, seems to have turned into the brightest shooting star in the universe at this moment, rushing towards Hela with a long tail flame and a ray of light piercing the sky. This is the horror of the eternal gun. Will be in. Without the blood of the target, it will never stop. Similarly, it is also the trump card in the hands of Odin. Come on, Tilda. Hela completely entered the state, boiling with fighting spirit, looking solemnly at the huge sharp gun flying towards him. The huge death power gathered in his hands, and the diamond blade condensed into a huge spirit sword suspended above his head. When the divine power had gathered to a certain level, Hela yelled, raised her finger, pointed the diamond blade above her head at the flying spear of eternity, and cut it off. The power of death transformed from divine power exuded an aura that made all life uneasy, and it slammed into the flying meteor. The civilians in the city of Asgard were disturbed by the huge amounts of sonic boom. At the same time, the shockwave brought about by the collision of the gun of eternity and the great diamond sword is also spreading at this moment. The divine water under the Bifrost was engulfed by the shockwave and turned into a huge wave thousands of meters high, rushing towards Asgard. If this level of fighting and collision happened on the Earth, it would be a catastrophe at the level of extermination. This is Asgard. It is the strongest city in the 9 realms. When those 1,000-meter high waves were about to hit the city-state of Asgard, they were blocked out of thin air by a huge amounts of transparent barrier. This is Asgard's protective measure, and it is also the famous Wall of Asgard in mythology. Even so, the movement caused by this impact still left all the bystanders dumbfounded. Many Asgardians, who had never seen Odin make a move, understood for the first time what it means to be strong. Thor lay on the ground, watching this scene from the corner of his eye, feeling bitter in his heart. He realized that the gap between himself and Hela was much bigger than it showed. It is not difficult to guess that when Hela attacked him before, he was basically not serious. However, unlike others, Li Feng, standing behind Hela, paid more attention to the specific circumstances of the collision. Did Hela win or Odin win? As the divine power gradually dissipated, the result appeared in front of everyone. Hela was blown away by the divine shockwave and landed behind Li Feng. And Li Feng, who had keen sixth senses, instantly noticed that Hela's aura had weakened a lot. Obviously, she suffered a big loss in this fight. As for Odin, he was high above, shrouded in divine power, overlooking Jifeng and Hela below. This time, the result of the match between Odin and Hela was no different from before. Odin can seal Hela once, and naturally he can seal Hela a second time. In terms of divine power, Hela, who has no divine body, is still no match for Odin in the late grade. After seeing this scene, the Asgard soldiers breathed a sigh of relief, and then cheered for their god king. With such a powerful god king, the people of Asgard are naturally proud of it. As Odin repelled Hela, he set his sights on Li Feng. Although Li Feng is still an ordinary low-level creature in Odin's view, his threat degree is no lower than Hela. So this time, Odin, who had lost some divine power, didn't waste any more saliva, but really regarded Li Feng as an opponent. At the same time, the looming killing intent towards Li Feng was stronger than the killing intent towards Hela. Stupid lowly creature, your time of death is near. Asgard's authority cannot be challenged. Those who defile our bloodline, die. With a roar and bursts of divine voices, Odin sentenced Li Nuo Li Jiao Feng to death. The words fall. He raised the tip of the eternal spear again and pointed it at Li Feng below. The gun of eternity will turn into a shooting star and penetrate your heart. Unlike the previous fight against Hela, this time Odin obviously didn't intend to hold back, and directly used his trump card. He even directly released the ultimate move of the Spear of Eternity, striving to kill with one blow. This time, not only Odin's huge divine power gathered in the eternal gun, but even the land of Asgard under his feet responded at this moment. Infinite power, countless gorgeous divine powers rose from the earth, and merged into the eternal gun. This shot was infinitely more terrifying than the previous shot against Hela. One of the members of the ancient god group died under the full force of Odin. It can even be boldly said that the power of this gun has definitely surpassed the level of the Heavenly Father and reached an unimaginable realm. Chapter 99 Reopening the Domain. Please subscribe, close black lens bracket. Before this attack landed, Li Feng felt his whole body being shrunk by a terrifying tearing force, and his hairs grew terrified. This is the full blow of Odin, the Lord of the Nine Realms. If it were any superhero, he would not choose the hard steel on the front. But Li Feng. There was no intention of retreating at all, and he was ready to face up to the difficulties with every step, and confront this eternal gun that fell from the sky head-on. However, just as he was about to activate the Steppenwolf template with all his strength and cover the armor of the god of symbiosis, Hela's emerald green figure suddenly flashed and blocked Li Feng's body. This scene is different. Hela has to block this fatal shot for Li Feng. After getting along for this period of time, Hela and White Queen more or less know that Li Feng is not an ordinary person, but they don't know exactly how strong Li Feng is. Therefore, when facing Odin, a well-known ultimate move, Hela and White Queen had almost no hesitation, and stood in front of Li Feng without hesitation. They chose to protect Li Feng with their bodies. In fact, for Hela, she has not returned to the divine body, and she is not sure to block the shot, but she did not think so much at all. Because behind her is her favorite person. Seeing Hela standing in front of him without any hesitation, Li Feng was very moved. It is indeed a very lucky thing to have such a wife who is willing to sacrifice everything for herself. However, this does not mean that Li Feng must let her sacrifice. A man cannot hide behind a woman. Li Feng decided to do it himself. Odin's blow was clearly aimed at killing him, so it was absolutely impossible for him to back down. Therefore, Li Feng stepped forward slowly, past Hela, and said without looking back, "My wife, leave it to me, and you can take a good rest." Odin naturally noticed the performance between Li Feng and Hela. Seeing that Hela stood in front of Li Feng without hesitation, Odin was extremely angry and at the same time felt an inexplicable sense of relief. This bloodthirsty goddess who once followed her to slaughter tens of thousands of creatures in the Nine Realms finally learned to protect others. But even so, Odin's killing intent towards Li Feng became more and more intense, climbing to the peak. After seeing Li Feng crossing Hela, Odin stopped hesitation, injected a huge amount of divine power into the Eternal Spear again, and threw it down from the air. The Eternal Spear at the moment has completely turned into a ray of light, carrying the power of destroying the world, heading towards the monsoon. No one doubted that this blow could kill Li Feng, except for Hela. Seeing Li Feng's back standing in front of her, Hela calmed down for no reason, and a strong sense of security gushed out. She has never experienced the feeling of someone standing in front of you and protecting you from the wind and rain. But at this moment, Li Feng gave it to her. As for Li Feng, after taking a deep breath, he raised a sword finger in his right hand, and suddenly said, "Field expansion." Li Feng spat out a few words, and the Spear of Eternity had already attacked and killed with a bright light all over the sky. Empty space. When the gun of eternity was about to pierce through Li Feng's heart, the bright light shining all around instantly dimmed. Then, on the entire Bifrost, there seemed to be a curtain that fell from the sky, covering the entire Asgard. And behind Li Feng, there is a huge emerald green pupil with an inverted triangle, staring at the whole of Asgard. The field expands, and there is no limit to the space. Moreover, it has been magnified nearly 100 times. It is a scene created by using the Steppenwolf template and the God of Symbiosis template at the same time. The power of the new Protoss of the Apocalypse Star, the genetic rewriting of the Venom symbiote, plus the mechanism of the field expansion. The entire Bifrost is shrouded in darkness. This area has completely become Li Feng's territory. Here, it is no longer Asgard, no longer the territory of the Nine Realms. 2. Immeasurable. Everyone covered by this field, including Odin, Frigga, Heimdall, Thor, and a group of Asgard soldiers, all of them constricted their pupils and felt a huge amount of killing intent descending on them on himself. This realm is more penetrating and awe-inspiring than the realm of death released by Hela before. Could it be an evil law outside the Nine Realms? It's not the first time I saw Odin who released Boundless Space by Li Feng. At the moment his heart beat violently. He didn't think about it. It was completely unexpected that Li Feng could stretch this thing to such a large size that it even covered the entire Bifrost. At the moment of the test, the huge pupils behind Li Feng expanded again, and at the same time, there were countless roars of demons all around, which were the screams and wailing from the hell of the new god race. And Hela, who was standing behind Li Feng, even covered her small cherry mouth, her face full of shock. Ellipsis. Is it still the husband in my memory? Why is it so tyrannical? As soon as this idea came out, Li Feng's whole body was covered with a layer of dazzling silver and black armor, and 3 black stars appeared around him, circling up and down with Li Feng's every move. This is the product of the evolution of the god of symbiosis after absorbing the gene of Galactus. Dark matter. Old man Odin, do you dare to take a punch from me? Li Feng laughed loudly, and suddenly punched the eternal spear floating above his head as if hit by a hold spell. The fist, which contained terrifying power, directly hit the tip of the eternal spear. Instantly, the aurora all over the sky collapsed, and countless fragments of divine power exploded. The Spear of Eternity, which had slaughtered countless enemies in the Nine Realms, was unable to advance an inch under Li Feng's domineering strength. What's even more frightening is that after 2 seconds, the Eternal Spear seemed to be unable to withstand Li Feng's power anymore. Starting from the tip of the spear, countless fine cracks began to spread along the gun body. Known as the Eternal Divine Spear, the divine spear that once made countless lords of the Nine Realms succumb, was defeated by a more powerful force at this moment. Then, inch by inch cracked. Not only that, the remaining power of Li Feng's punch also shattered the wall of Asa Garden, which was said to never fall. Even the space layer above the Asgard land is separated by a straight line. The sea water below was also divided into 2 meters under Li Feng's punch. It's not over yet. After smashing the Eternal Spear, Li Feng's figure was suspended in midair, and he pinched his sword finger with one hand. Buzz buzz. A huge amount of ripples spread from his body, and the inverted triangular pupils behind him suddenly widened. Odin's divine power floating around was suppressed and wiped out. On Bifrost. Quiet. Deathly silence. Everyone stared blankly at Li Feng's tall and slender figure, unable to speak a word. Chapter 100 Frigga and #039. S obstacle open black lens bracket subscribe, close black lens bracket. The soldiers of Asgard couldn't imagine that such a terrifying force could erupt from such an ordinary body. He has no divine power, let alone huge amounts of body, and is completely a lowly creature. Why can it cause such a big commotion? Odin also stared blankly at Li Feng, without the slightest arrogance as before. Even, he has not been able to react so far, his heart is full of confusion. What happened? Is the gun of eternity broken like this? These two questions kept circling in Odin's mind. Let alone him, even Hela is looking at Li Feng stupidly at the moment. No matter how much she deceived herself, she couldn't believe that the man who was as brave as a god just now, who shattered the spear of eternity with just one punch, was actually her husband. Although both Hela and the White Queen knew that Li Feng was not an ordinary person, they never expected that he would be so strong. It's unbelievable. Seeing the effect he created, Li Feng nodded in satisfaction. This is why he withdrew his strength. If he fully releases the dark matter power imitated by the god of symbiosis through the Galactus gene, the entire Bifrost may collapse because of this. It is worth mentioning that this move of his directly defeated Odin's proud self-esteem. Odin's ridiculous pride was even more shattered. Seeing the fragments of the spear of eternity shattered by Li Feng turned into dots of starlight and fell in front of his eyes, Odin's eyes were lifeless, and there was a touch of death. The old body fell directly from the sky. This is impossible. Ellipsis. Quote. How is this possible? That is the spear of eternity. The spear of eternity that has been fighting with me for tens of thousands of years. Even though the fact was right in front of Odin's eyes, he still couldn't accept it. He couldn't believe that Gungnir, the eternal gun, would be smashed to pieces by a lowly creature from the earth. In fact, let alone Odin, even those Asgardians behind him are full of despair at the moment. Even God King Odin has failed, and even the so-called eternal gun has been crushed. Who else can stop that man? Could it be that Asgard, which has lasted for countless years in the universe, will be destroyed by a person on Earth today? No one can answer this question. Because no one knows the answer to this question. All Asgard people seem to have realized something, and there is only deep despair and anxiety in their hearts. As for Li Feng, naturally he will not soften his heart because of this, he is aware of the damage he has caused. When Odin's divine power was dissipated by his domain and he fell powerlessly, he slowly walked towards Odin. This bad old man, who just yelled to kill him and pierce his heart, is still unwilling to agree to marry Hela. Who gave you such courage? Liang Jingru. Hela, I am married to Li Feng. Don't say you are Odin, it doesn't matter when Jesus comes. However, just when Li Feng was about to say a few words to mock Odin, Hela hurried up and stopped Li Feng. Honey, let me do it. Hela looked at Li Feng with a pleading tone. Her meaning is also very obvious. Odin's life must be taken by her own hands. Li Feng thought for a while, but did not refuse the request. Fair enough. The reason why this battle happened was originally because of the enmity between Hela and Odin, and it is undoubtedly the most appropriate for the father and daughter to resolve it by themselves. As for what Odin offended him just now, Li Feng suppressed it for the sake of his wife. After seeing Li Feng nodding in agreement, Hela showed a tense face, and finally showed a touching smile. Then, step by step, she took the steps that a goddess should have, and with a flick of her fingers, hundreds of brilliant diamond blades floated out of the air, wrapped in the air around her, and lost towards Odin. Odin, as if he didn't see her movements, still stared blankly at the shattered eternal gun. He couldn't accept the reality until now, and it was also difficult for him to admit that he had failed. In other words, the gun of eternity is his old friend who has been with him for the longest time since he became Odin. He has traveled with him through the 9 realms, and has long developed feelings for him. But Li Feng's punch not only shattered the spear of eternity, but also completely shattered the proud heart of the King of God. For the first time, Odin, who has traversed the 9 realms for millions of years, was trampled underfoot by an earthling. Although he is old and his strength is not as good as when he was young, it is still difficult to accept this blow. So much so that Hela, who was approaching slowly, was put aside. However, just as Hela was walking towards Odin, the benevolent Queen Frigga stepped out from the side and stood in front of Hela. "My daughter. Enough is enough, stop." At this moment, Frigga was limp beside Odin, supporting his fragile body, full of pleadings, and said to Hela. Although she is very angry with Odin's many practices, Odin is her husband after all, and the only one she has loved for tens of thousands of years. How is it possible for her to watch Odin die and be killed by the daughter she once raised? However, when Hela heard this, her eyes were still firm and she shook her head. She couldn't let Odin go, just as Lee couldn't let her go. Therefore, even if Frigga intercedes, Hela will not change her mind. Those pains and betrayals brought by Odin have always become her demons. If she doesn't get rid of this demon, how can she be calm? Get out of the way, Frigg, don't think I'm afraid to kill you. Looking at Frigga, who was still standing in front of her, Hela said coldly. It is undeniable that Frigga used to be very nice to her, but so what? In the end, isn't watching Odin raise her into a god of death? Didn't you watch Odin imprison himself in the dungeon, never to escape? If Frigga could stand up and stop Odin at that time, and reach out to hold her when she slipped into the abyss, would all this still happen today? Sometimes, looking at evil deeds and not stopping them, originally is an evil deed. Hela, I beg you, let your father go. He is indeed wrong, but you can't kill him. He is the Lord of the 9 worlds, the King of God, and even your father. If you kill her, how can you convince the people of Asgard? You will be infamous. Frigga was still unwilling to give in, and opened her arms to block Odin. She couldn't just watch her daughter kill her father. So no matter what, she wants to stop Hela. Even though she has no magic power. This is as much for Odin as it is for Hela. If Hela really kills Odin, he will bear lose father's reputation in the future. Chapter 101 Odin who regards death as home. Please subscribe, close black lens bracket. However, no matter how much Frigg pleaded, Hela's eyes remained firm. The intention to kill has already started, and I can't stop it. I'll say it again. Step aside. Otherwise, I'll kill you too. Looking at Frigg, who was still stubbornly standing in front of her, Hela closed her eyes, her tone extremely indifferent. She has run out of patience. Frigga still shook her head. Even though death enveloped her, she didn't care, and refused to take half a step back. At this time, Odin also came back to his senses, and saw Frigg standing in front of him. A wry smile mixed with relief appeared on Odin's face. Frigg, my wife. Get out of the way, let her kill me, it's between me and her. It was I who created her and everything I have today. Being able to die without guilt and regret is the ending I deserve for the May 10th. Odin slowly got up from the ground, and said with relief and exhaustion on his face. Frigga turned her head and saw Odin's firm eyes. There is no difference from before. Don't listen to her opinion at all. Frigga wanted to say something else, but Odin shook his head at her and stopped her. At the same time, he waved his hand, and a ball of light created by divine power enveloped Frigga, making her levitate to one side, preventing her from standing in front of Hela. Hela didn't show any hesitation. She crossed Frigga and walked towards Odin. Finally, she stopped in front of Odin and looked him directly. I won. Hela sneered and said 2 words to Odin. Odin nodded and said nothing, but his eyes were kind. Just like a father looking at his daughter who has grown up to be competitive. Hela, my daughter. You are really like me, even the things you do are exactly the same. Odin whispered to Hela, like a loving old father. What he said was not just heroism, but also rebellion and regicide. Isn't what ruling Hela did exactly the same as what he did to his brothers back then? The only difference is that Hela kills his father and Odin kills his brother. I was cultivated by you, and it was also your betrayal that turned me into what I am now. Regret. You can only blame yourself, can't you? Hela smiled sarcastically, looked at Odin's slumped expression, and suddenly lost the idea of killing him. Without the eternal gun, without the king of gods' arrogance, Odin is like a wolf without teeth, and can no longer be her opponent. Therefore, Hela at the moment is willing to chat with Odin. In fact, Hela would rather see Odin stand in front of her and repent. That would be more comforting than killing him. Yes, my daughter. I don't regret doing it. Do you know why? Because I got a satisfactory heir, a qualified heir, an heir with all my qualities. Hela, when I saw you standing in front of that mortal, I had an answer in my heart. Only the god of death who has learned to protect others is qualified to sit on the throne of God. The king can't just kill, but also learn to protect the living. I think you should understand this truth. Odin smiled in relief, and his tone became more and more peaceful, completely devoid of fighting spirit. At the end of the day, he did do so many things to Hela that he couldn't forgive himself. But at this moment, looking at Hela standing in front of him, Odin suddenly felt that the result was not bad. At least in this way, Asgard's future results will not be too bad. He can rest assured that Hela can safely sit on the throne of God. Oh, is it so? When you say this, don't you think that I will let you go? Hela sneered. Since Odin does not repent, he must die today. Apparently Odin also knew his end, plus he originally had his time limit approaching, so he didn't have any regrets on his face. Come on, boy. After killing me, you will be the new king of God in the 9 realms. It is also a god king recognized by me, Odin, and handed down personally. Odin looked serious and didn't resist. At this moment, he amplified his divine voice, and in front of all the Asgardians, he handed over the throne of the divine king to Hela. Some people may not understand Odin's intention of doing this, but Frigga, who has been with him for tens of thousands of years, is very clear. Odin is atoning. Also what was done to Hela before repayment. Hela is not stupid and definitely understands this, but she still won't forgive Nantu. After hearing Odin's words, Hela raised her finger and summoned the diamond blade around her, aiming at every fatal part of Odin. Die. Hela closed her eyes gently. But at the moment, a figure covered in dark blue thunder roared up to the sky, rushing from a distance. Stop it! Stop it! The one who came was Thor. And it's Thor who has awakened Thor's power. When he saw that Hela was about to kill his revered father, Thor couldn't control the anger in his heart at all, and broke through the boundaries in one fell swoop and became Thor. Because the thunder around Thor was too conspicuous, Hela's movements also stopped. Odin also opened his dry eyes again, looking at Thor who was coming with the thunder. He smiled. My boy, Thor, I am proud of your bravery. But you shouldn't have come to stop it. You don't have to sacrifice yourself for it. This is my own fault, and I will pay for it with my own life. In addition, I hope you can forget this hatred, take good care of your mother, and the people of Asgard, and live in peace. Odin was completely relieved. It's the same reason that people's words are good when they are about to die. Then, he looked at Frigg again. My first wife, after I die, you have to assist Hela well in 2.4, I know that this child actually doesn't have the heart to kill you, but feels a bit of guilt towards you. But other than that, you have to take good care of Thor, he is still a child who hasn't grown up in my eyes. If only Loki was here, so I could have a few words with him, too. When everything was explained, Odin laughed at himself, he completely lost his worries, closed his eyes and waited for the arrival of death. Hela didn't have any hesitation either. He raised his hand and turned back to press it. Thor, who was covered with Thor's power all over his body, fell heavily to the ground as if he had been restrained. Next second, she grabbed a diamond-sharp blade with her other hand, and after injecting the power of death, she aimed at Odin's heart and stabbed it suddenly. The sharp blade pierces through the divine body. As Odin said, he paid the price for his past. Chapter 102 Recover, my people, please subscribe, close black lens bracket. And Hela had given him a chance to repent, but he didn't cherish it, so Hela couldn't possibly forgive him. However, at the moment when Odin's face was dead silent, Hela couldn't be happy at all, but felt a hollow feeling in her heart. She glanced at the diamond-sharp blade in her hand and remained silent. At this time, Thor could no longer control the anger in his heart, and the golden thunder flashed all over his body, breaking free from Hela's shackles, and swooping in. "I am going to kill you." The angry roar was extremely sharp. But at this moment, Frigga also broke free from the shroud of divine power, and directly stopped Thor, who was rushing. "Thor, back off." Looking at Thor, whose face was full of sadness and hatred, Frigga scolded with a sad face. Thor stopped suddenly, looking at his mother in disbelief. Frigg turned around and looked at Hela. "Hela, my daughter, this is Odin's own choice, and I won't blame you. It's just that I hope you can lead the 9 realms and become a great god king," as he said. There was sobs in his tone, and he seemed extremely sad. "Odin is dead." 07 Frigga, who watched all this with her own eyes, could not control her inner emotions no matter how mature she was. But she really didn't mean to resent Hela. Because this is the fruit that Odin himself planted. Odin eventually paid the price for what he did. But his death is not meaningless, because he also cultivated an heir for Asgard who was stronger than himself and more suitable for sitting on the throne. Hela didn't say anything more after hearing Frigga's words. She just turned around, came to Li Feng's side, and grabbed Li Feng's hand. Originally, Hela thought that she would be very excited after getting revenge as she wished and sitting on the King of God, but at this moment, she felt a touch of loneliness that she shouldn't have. That is the loss of not knowing what to do after the goal is achieved. Li Feng guessed a little bit about this. He didn't say much, just hugged Hela gently. "It's all right, dear. I'll always be by your side." Soon, Frigga also woke up from her grief. She picked up the scepter that Odin had dropped on the ground, used her divine power, and said to all Asgard people. "All the people of Asgard heed. Starting today, Hela will become the new king of Asgard, ruling the 9 ghosts in the name of the King of God. She is not only the orthodox Asgard blood, but also the heir chosen by Odin, the God King of all of us." The words fell. Frigg walked up to Hela, grabbed Hela's hand, and walked slowly towards the Asgard temple. As for Odin's divine body, it was picked up by Thor, who seemed to have grown up by dozens of years in an instant, and followed behind. With the arrival of Hela, the people of Asgard were restless. They couldn't believe that such an enemy who killed the King of God Odin was going to become their new God King. This is really unacceptable. However, the Queen of Heaven, Frigga, personally recognized Hela's status, and they didn't have any complaints. After all, Frigga is also the Queen of Asgard, so she is quite convincing. As for whether Hela is Odin's direct bloodline, the people of Asgard are actually half-hearted. However, they are just thinking about it in their hearts. Odin is dead, and a new king shall be established. Seeing Hela and Frigga walking slowly, a part of the people of Asgard who admired strength showed a pious expression to her. Soon, there were the first Asgard people who knelt down to Hela. After someone took the lead, more and more people surrendered in the capital of Asgard. They witnessed the great war with their own eyes, and in their own way, recognized Hela's identity and greeted the new King of God. Seeing this scene, a smile finally appeared on the corner of Hela's mouth. All of this is exactly what she has always dreamed of. The throne of God King of Asgard, the King of God who rules the 9 realms, is something that should belong to her. Now, it is finally a dream come true. Holding the hand of Queen Frigg, Hela walked towards the center of Asgard's capital. Under the worship of countless people, Hela was crowned king. And Li Feng followed behind Hela calmly and silently, looking at her softly with a smile on her face. Although the process has twists and turns, but the final outcome is good. Hela finally accomplished what she always wanted to do and sat on the throne of the Asgard temple. From then on, she is no longer the goddess of death, but the King of God. The day after he announced his enthronement and accepted the worship of the Asgardians, Hela and Li Feng walked into the dungeon of Asgard together. Here is Odin's treasury, which contains many treasures collected by Odin from the 9 realms. "Honey, come get back the divine body with me." Hela smiled and said something to Li Feng, then pulled him to the inside of the treasure house. Along the way, Li Feng opened his eyes and saw many treasures. For example, the low-level infinity gauntlet created by the dwarf family. For example, the heart of a certain lord in the world of hatred. Eero. That eternal flame. Hela reached out to take a handful of tinder, and then walked towards the depths again. Hela stopped when she came to an empty floor. Then, she pressed a mechanism, divine power spewed out, and after a formation flickered, a hole leading to the ground appeared. Go down and have a look. Hela nodded slightly to Li Feng, and the two walked down together. Don't spray it. Don't spray it. Readers in the comment area 170, the protagonist will definitely not be so shrinking behind. The plot has progressed to a certain point and it will be killed directly. I guarantee you will enjoy watching it. In addition, the author intends to add some animation skills similar to spell return. If you have animation character skills that you want to add, you can leave a message in the comment area and adopt them. I don't know how many fans of Naruto want to see the scene where Venom is attached to Susanoo. After walking through hundreds of steps, Li Feng and Hela finally entered the underground of Asgard. With the help of the eternal fire burning in Hela's hand, Li Feng finally saw clearly where they were now. This is a huge amounts of the Colosseum. Countless corpses are piled up into a mountain peak, and an evil force of death is constantly circling, which makes people feel very depressing. The most conspicuous thing that came into view was the corpse of a giant wolf. Hela stepped forward and looked at the giant wolf with its body full of weapons, his eyes full of nostalgia. Once upon a time, the giant wolf Fenrir was her only trusted companion and her most valiant pet on the battlefield. In the rebellion before she was sealed, the giant wolf Fenrir was also killed by Odin. Now, everything has subsided. Hela raised her head, glanced at the bones of the other men who had fought with her, and walked to the center of the Colosseum. Then, she raised the hand that ignited the eternal fire, and slapped it hard on the ground. Chapter 103 God and Hash-039, S Burial Garden, open, please subscribe, close black lens bracket. Next moment. A dark green terrifying flame, centered on Hela, suddenly spread throughout the audience. These flames, like living bacteria, crazily drilled into the bones and devoured them. Tens of seconds later, those soldiers who had already died fighting for Hela grew flesh and blood one after another, swayed and climbed up. With green eyes, feeling Hela's call, they formed a queue and stood in front of Hela. The giant wolf Fenrir stepped on the terrifying green back teeth. His body was covered with layers of dark green light, and he got up from the ground. It shook its body a few times, and the wound on its body began to heal, until the two bright green pupils opened, and it saw Hela with the White Queen's body. Although the current Hela only has a soul but no body, the divine wolf who used to fight with her on the battlefield also reacted immediately, as if seeing a relative he hadn't seen for many years, and howled to the sky. Like a puppy in general, he leaned in front of Hela, rubbing his head against Hela's body non-stop. However, at the moment, the wolf reborn from the green fire found Li Feng standing aside. For an enshrined animal, the sense of smell is quite acute. Li Feng carried a faint oppressive force, which made him feel threatened. Hoo. Fenrir bared his teeth and growled threateningly at Li Feng. Be honest. He is my mate and your master. Seeing this, Hela snorted coldly and slapped Fenrir on the head unceremoniously. After being hit, Fenrir also restrained his ferociousness, and let out a deep whimper, looking particularly aggrieved. Li Feng didn't take it to heart either. Instead he felt that this wolf was quite handsome, and if it was used as a mount, it would definitely be cool. Okay, you all go to the dungeon and wait for orders. I'm going to retrieve my god body. Hela straightened her body, glanced back at the soldiers standing beside her, and ordered quietly. All the soldiers were in uniform, turned around and walked out of the area. And the giant wolf that was next to Hela was also glared at by Hela, and after a few reluctant glances, it lay obediently on the ground. Honey, stand back a little, I'm going to open the entrance to the god's burial garden. Hela took a deep breath and pressed her fingers between her brows. The area under his feet is called the god's burial garden. Since the formation of the 9 realms, countless bones of gods have been buried here. This has always been the secret of the Asgard temple, and the only person who knows its existence is Hela, except for Odin. This is because when he first fought in the Nine Realms, Odin brought Hela to this place when he encountered an invincible opponent, took the risk of resurrecting some of the dead gods, and asked them to help in the battle. Definitely, after these gods were resurrected, they were reduced to ashes not long after, which was also one of the costs. And Hela chose to keep her divine body in this place, on the one hand because it is very safe, and on the other hand because there is a certain formation here, which is specially used to protect her divine body from the erosion of any substance in the universe. Li Feng didn't know much about this, but he was very cooperative and took 2 steps back. Hela said softly, "Emma, are you ready? My soul is about to come out of your body, and you will feel the tearing pain, but it will only last for a few seconds." "I'm ready." Emma's voice rang in her heart. Hela stretched out her 2 fingers suddenly, piercing through the center of her eyebrows at this moment, opening a tiny crack. Next second, a figure wrapped in green light slowly pulled out from the divine body. And White Queen also let out some piercing screams on at the moment. Ah 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 ah. 3 seconds later, Hela's moving soul was separated from the White Queen's body. At this moment, she is like a jade finely carved by God, with a flawless body and a face that is almost like a fairy. Hela smiled at Li Feng with a smile. At this time, the White Queen with a weak face fell to the ground. Li Feng's heart tightened, he rushed forward and hugged the White Queen into his arms. "Don't worry, hubby, Emma just passed out due to excessive use of mental power, just rest for a while." Hela stretched out her hand to caress the White Queen's cheek, and explained hastily. "That's good." Li Feng breathed a sigh of relief. He glanced at Hela who had escaped from the White Queen's body. At the moment was the body of the soul. Even though it was becoming translucent, he could still feel the tenacious power of death being slightly weakened. "Husband, I must return to the divine body immediately, or my soul will dissipate." Hela said softly, "Next, I will open the divine burial garden through my blood. No matter what you see inside, don't be afraid." Li Feng nodded. Hela raised a finger and swiped it lightly towards the palm. A dark green liquid dripped down the wrist along the ground. For a moment, densely dense mysterious runes emerged from under the feet, flashing golden dazzling lights, and went straight to the sky. Buzz buzz. There was a piercing sound of metal rubbing, and several cracks slowly appeared under Hela's feet, and in just a few tens of seconds, they gradually transformed into a pure black swirl of stars. "This is the entrance to the god's burial garden." Hela breathed a sigh of relief, and just as she was about to step in, a terrifying tearing force suddenly came from her feet, followed by a giant withered hand protruding from the abyss, grabbing her ankle, causing her expression to change. "This is... the power of the ancient demon fluctuates." Before the words fell, Hela's entire soul was swallowed up by the nebula and disappeared without a trace. Li Feng looked at this sudden scene, and didn't realize what happened of Zhao Qian's at all. But soon, he realized that something might have happened to Hela. Session. With a gloomy face, he looked at the crawling giant wolf, carefully handed the White Queen in front of it, and said, "Take care of her and wait for me outside the dungeon, if she loses a hair. I will dig you up and debone you, do you hear me?" The giant wolf raised his eyes lightly, obviously a little cold. But the next second Li Feng's eyes instantly turned silvery white, and a terrifying killing intent descended, enveloping the giant wolf. The latter was startled, shivered, nodded his head quickly, and crawled in front of Li Feng, motioning for him to put the White Queen on his body. Li Feng then carefully laid Emma's body flat on the giant wolf's back, rubbed her forehead, and said, "Honey, don't be afraid, I'll be right back." Emma, who was in a coma, seemed to feel something, and whispered softly, which was regarded as a pure response. Chapter 104 Warning from the system. Open black lens bracket. Please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. Li Feng turned his head to look at the shrinking spiral nebula, and plunged into it. Here is a dead space with no end in sight, a land without an owner. Here, it seems to be at the edge of the universe. Here, there are countless dead stars floating, which look very much like those exhausted planets. What's even more strange is that there are some kind of strange transparent creatures swimming slowly around. Li Feng only felt a huge amount of tearing force pulling him in, and then the gravity became smaller, and his whole body was floating in this space. His eyes flickered, and he tried to move forward and walk in this area, but as soon as he took a step, he felt an invisible black wall blocking his way, and he couldn't see any fluctuations from the surface. But Li Feng's keen intuition told him that there seemed to be a barrier here, as if separating something. He stepped forward, put his hands in front of the air, and at the same time muttered in his heart, "Lan." Immediately, a faint light burst out from Li Feng's hand, and the air seemed to be forcibly torn open, revealing a black hole, exuding fluctuations like a black hole. Li Feng raised his eyes and glanced inside, but was so startled that cold sweat broke out. Inside, unexpectedly there was a huge amount of crimson pupil, staring at his direction, exuding an indescribable aura. Living things. Or planets. Li Feng didn't know. He quickly snorted coldly, and continued walking into the passage without hesitation. Soon, there was another obvious hole in the barrier, and Li Feng stepped in without any hesitation. However, what he didn't expect was that the length of the passage was simply beyond his imagination. There is no light in the space channel, only a white world. When Li Feng saw a glaring light at the end, he stepped out. Laugh. The moment he walked out, Li Feng felt as if his body was being targeted by some kind of ancient beast, and his body was covered in hairs. He looked up sharply. All around him, monster planets with beast-like heads were turning their eyes, staring closely at the direction where Li Feng suddenly appeared, revealing inexplicable killing intent. They are all ugly heads. Li Feng glanced at it, and he could even clearly feel that there are a lot of creatures moving in these planets. In other words, these heads, Haoran is no different from a planet suitable for living creatures. He paused, suddenly became interested, and a coercion like a boulder descending from the whole body burst out, squeezing towards these creatures. However, at this moment, around Li Feng, 7 or 8 mechanically made dragons suddenly drilled out. They have a pair of skeleton-like wings, and a few floating planets protrude from their mouths. Black swirls wrap around their bodies, and they exude energy that makes Li Feng's heart palpitate. There is a faint sacred aura that surrounds him. Up. But these creatures did not act immediately, but stared at Li Feng, looked at each other with their companions, and said some incomprehensible nonsense, as if reaching some kind of consensus. In front of Li Feng, after circling around a few times, it disappeared. He put his hands in his pockets, his face full of doubts. But in the next second, a strange roar of some kind of animal suddenly came from under his feet, and a mouth like a black hole vortex appeared out of thin air. There are even sharp teeth growing on the edge of the vortex. What is this? Li Feng narrowed his pupils sharply, frowned and muttered, "There are no other entrances around here, so should I go down here?" Thinking of this, Li Feng hesitated for a moment. He stretched out his hand, trying to use his own strength, but it didn't work as imagined. And those skull planets around seemed to be approaching him. Li Feng snorted coldly, and a shock wave erupted, but it only made the planets tremble slightly, without causing any substantial damage at all. On the contrary, these heads got excited, and opened their mouths one by one, showing a look of looking at the food. "Dare to treat me as a prey, are you tired of living?" Li Feng was not afraid. He opened his mouth to sneer, and at the same time his body trembled violently. Another violent shock wave erupted, reverberating throughout the galaxy. Whoosh whoosh. The skull planets retreated directly as if they had met their nemesis, and disappeared before Li Feng's eyes at a speed of light deviation. Could it be that the so-called God's burial garden is actually a world of ferocious beasts? Li Feng was full of doubts. He restrained his breath and began to observe the surrounding situation. Spiritual power cannot penetrate through this space. Apparently, this is a single unknown galaxy. At best, it should be just a corner of the unknown universe. Why is there such a place underground in Asgard? What are the origins of those mechanical dragons? The energy contained in their bodies even made Li Feng feel a little scared. He began to realize that there might be more similar unknowns to come. Even beyond his cognition. However, when Li Feng looked around, he suddenly saw countless dead bodies floating from a distance. These people looked like alien creatures, no different. Seeing this scene, Li Feng immediately understood. This is still the burial ground of the gods, but it is very likely that a channel to a certain galaxy in the universe has been opened. Having figured this out, Li Feng began to search for Hela among the corpses again. There is no doubt that there is no air in this place, and it is extremely cold. As the god of Asgard, Hela should be able to survive in this kind of space. However, Li Feng searched for a long time, but still couldn't find Hela. Just as he was about to use his power to call Hela, the system's voice suddenly rang. Warning! An unknown energy body is found ahead. The energy intensity cannot be estimated. Host, please be careful. What? Hearing this, Li Feng frowned immediately. The system could call it an existence with inestimable energy intensity. What will it be? Not long after, a large group of dead bodies suddenly appeared in front of Li Feng's eyes. Among the group of dead bodies, there is a strange white light, and the energy body referred to by the system is in it. What is that? A corpse that looked extremely special suddenly appeared in front of Li Feng. The reason why he is special is because compared to other corpses, this corpse looks more like a human being, and it is well preserved. From a distance, it looks like a living person. Moreover, there seemed to be some kind of special energy around him, making it impossible for other corpses to get close, and those terrifying existences like planets could also avoid them. Chapter 105 Death of the Transcendent. Please subscribe, close black lens bracket. With the appearance of this corpse, the whole space became quiet. Could it be that the so-called energy body is a corpse? A corpse? A corpse stronger than yourself? Li Feng was a little puzzled. He tried to call out in his heart. System. Can you help me determine the identity of this corpse? Ding. Querying. Enquiry completed. This corpse is named Transcendence, and it comes from a transcendental realm beyond the multi-universe. Warning. Warning. This corpse is extremely dangerous, please leave the host as soon as possible. The system's voice was very rapid, and at the same time as it sounded one after another, a pressure from the bottom of his heart occupied Li Feng's heart. Li Feng, on the other hand, froze in place. The Transcendent. Li Feng never thought that the corpse in front of him would be a Transcendent. An existence that can be called invincible in the Marvel Universe. A guy who can compete with OAA. In other words, the Transcendent is an all-knowing, all-powerful being in the Marvel Universe. He comes from a transcendent realm other than the Wong multi-universe. Compared with the transcendent realm, multi-treasure universe is like a drop of water in the ocean. It can even be said that his existence is tens of thousands of times stronger than the 5 great gods. In the comics, he once endowed many people with powerful super ability, and then let these people kill themselves, but these people all failed. He once gave Jean Grey all the Phoenix Force, in order to die, but Shin also failed up. Even Doctor Strange tried to hypnotic ability transcendence, to bring transcendence into a place where theoretically the transcendence's mind can be completely dead, but there is no doubt that he lost it too. In the entire Marvel Universe, the Transcendent is an equal existence to OAA. And when the Transcendent was the strongest, it was even stronger than QAA. The abilities of the Transcendent include alter reality, erasure at will, and creation and destruction of the universe. For this kind of power, the so-called 5 gods, or the group of cosmic gods, cannot compete with it at all. If he uses an analogy to reflect his strength, in front of it, whether it is the eternal gods, celestial beings, or even intangible gods, in his eyes, they add up to a drop of water that can be erased at will. Therefore, the only one who can compete with him in the Marvel Universe may be QAA. Even Thanos, who has the heart of the universe, is not enough in the eyes of the Transcendent. Immediately afterwards, Li Feng suddenly thought of an alternative description of the Transcendent. Time and space are meaningless to him. From mountains to oceans, from fish to elephants, from molecules to atoms, none escaped his control and enslavement, and he manipulated all molecules, atoms, animals, plants, rocks, and oceans. Even if he doesn't understand the multi-universe, every presence he makes affects them. He is the champion of life, the strongest evolution of all life forms. The existence of the strongest diversity is like a microbe in his eyes. Whatever he says, the world is what it is. He has what he wants. That's right. At the moment, what appeared in front of Li Feng was such an invincible existence. Moreover, it is truly invincible. No wonder the system warned Li Feng just now. Because this guy is really too dangerous. For the current Li Feng, it is not an existence that can be mowed at all. However, Li Feng soon became puzzled. Since the Transcendent is such a powerful existence, why did he still die? And, did he die in the burial grounds of the gods in Asgard? This is obviously very unscientific. Could it be that this guy is not actually dead? As soon as this thought came out, Li Feng's eyes suddenly became extremely cautious. Seemingly aware of what Li Feng was thinking, the system immediately reminded. The host doesn't have to worry. According to the system detection, the energy body in front of the host is indeed dead. This isn't possible. Li Feng was a little puzzled. The Transcendent is almost the strongest existence in the entire Marvel Universe. Who can kill him? The system is not responding. Li Feng took a deep breath. He suddenly had an idea. Time gem. He tried to reach out and grabbed it suddenly. The time gem landed in the hand, exuding a bright light. Then, let's spy on the secret of your death. Li Feng's eyes flickered, and he was thinking. Yes. He is going to use the power of the time gem to find out how the Transcendent died. After all, in his eyes, the Transcendent is the most powerful existence in the Marvel Universe. 0. Seeking flowers. Who can make him die? The reason for his death is his lifespan. Under the power of the time gem, time and space gradually began to distort, and everything around Li Feng was undergoing special and weird changes. If the Ancient One magician were here, he would be extremely familiar with this scene. It is clear. Li Feng is traveling through time. And not for a short time travel. After traveling for hundreds of millions of years, the scenes around Li Feng gradually stopped. Immediately afterwards, a hollow sound rang in his ear. "OAA, I heard that you are the supreme infinite existence in the multi-universe, then, can I ask you one thing?" This voice made Li Feng's vision blur. The previous dark scene had disappeared without a trace, replaced by a muddy world. Oh. There is nothing in this world, only a white light and shadow standing in front of Li Feng. This light and shadow is no different from the height of a normal human being, but it exudes a terrifying power that makes people palpitate all the time. He was looking at a figure not far away who was also covered in golden light and talking. No doubt. That golden figure was the most powerful existence in the Marvel Universe billions of years ago, QAA. Your existence is very dangerous to this universe. If you are willing to leave this universe, I will agree to your terms. The OAA divine voice spoke in bursts. The Transcendent first nodded, looked up at a certain place, and murmured, "From the birth of the universe to the present, I have lived countless years, destroyed and created countless universes and planets, and countless powerful people have been defeated by me. I think my own life is meaningless. In my knowledge, they can't kill me, they can't even hurt me. This body has not brought me any benefits, let alone the scene I want to see, so I hope you can kill me, including my soul, give me eternal peace." Hearing this, Li Feng couldn't help frowning. So the Transcendent is suicidal. He couldn't understand such a thing. Immediately afterwards, QAA shook his head lightly, and slowly said, "Transcendor, I'm sorry, as far as I am concerned, I can't kill you either. Because your power is almost equal to mine, I can't kill you and me. Equal existence. I'm sorry, I can't help you, I should leave now." Chapter 106 Desire for Power. Please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. After saying this, the figure of QAA disappeared in an instant. Just leave. Li Feng held his breath. Looking at the leaving figure of QAA, Transcendent's eyes suddenly dimmed. Endless life, invincible strength, and almighty power, in the eyes of others, this may be what they dream of. However, in his opinion, these are just things that bind him, and he doesn't even have the right to seek peace. In the next second, the Transcendent seemed to think of something again. He suddenly raised his hand, and gently squeezed the space in front of him. Call out. A dazzling light gradually condensed, and in front of him, a different him appeared. But this different him doesn't seem to have any strength, and there is a tinge of gloom mixed with him, without even the slightest consciousness. It's also time. It's time to go to sleep on 563. The Transcendent smiled, closed his eyes suddenly, pressed his eyebrows, and transferred his consciousness to the other body. Goodbye, multi-universe. Next second, this corpse of a transcender shuttled between universes and disappeared. Seeing this scene, Li Feng was stunned. He never thought that the Transcendent actually killed himself. Yes. As an invincible existence on par with QAA in the Marvel Universe, the Transcendent finally chose to commit suicide, sleeping his eternal life. It's a little too much nonsense. In order to further confirm this matter, Li Feng activated the time gem again. He wanted to make sure that the Transcendence was really dead. But just at this, for a split second, Li Feng suddenly noticed that the body traveling through the universe smiled strangely at him as if it had sensed something. Go, stranger from billions of years later, if you want, take away all the power in that body. I hope you will not be like me, and finally choose to use this method to let yourself sleep in the universe. Once you accept the new power, you will become a new Transcendent. You will surpass the multi-universe and become the only Transcendent in this world. Your strength will far exceed your imagination. Meet the power you want. After the Transcendent finished speaking these few words, he fell into a deep sleep. The surrounding scene also seemed to collapse, completely disappearing. Li Feng is extremely scary. It never occurred to him that even though the Transcendent had committed suicide, he would still be able to detect his existence hundreds of millions of years later, and even could talk to him. When Li Feng was hesitating, a special cosmic energy suddenly struck, completely strangling all the light and shadow left by the Transcendent into a cloud of dust. At this moment, Li Feng really witnessed the death of the Transcendent. To him, it was like a dream. The timeline of the Marvel Universe has collapsed to such an extent. Anyway, Li Feng felt more and more that something was wrong. He waved his hand casually, the power of time gem disappeared, and now he returned to the previously unknown field, and what appeared in front of him was still the Transcendent. Corpse. The corpse was no different from an ordinary person, still lifeless and glowing with a strange white light. When looking at the corpse again, Li Feng's eyes suddenly had a hint of longing. According to what the Transcendent said before he died, he seemed to have left all his strength in this body. That is to say, this corpse possesses almost all the powers of a Transcendent. Coupled with what the Transcendent said to himself before, Li Feng felt more and more that the power of the Transcendent seemed to be specially prepared for him. Do you want to let go of such a great thing? What is certain is that, unlike the Transcendent, even if Li Feng gains invincible power, he will not be so stupid as to die. Because in his opinion, there are too many things worth remembering in this world. But the Transcendent doesn't seem to think so. Anyway, Li Feng did not intend to let go of this opportunity. He intends to take this corpse, this body with all the powers of the Transcendent. Because according to what the previous Transcendent said, if he really mastered the power of the Transcendent, then he is the new Transcendent. As long as one can master the power of the Transcendent, there will be no one in the entire Marvel Universe who can rival Li Feng, even. Come on, come to me. Li Feng took a deep breath, and looked longingly at the body of the Transcendent. At this time, the white light gathered on the surface of the Transcendent's body seemed to have sensed something, and all of them spewed towards Li Feng's brain. Scoff. A fierce strong light flashed in front of Li Feng. When he opened his eyes again, he found that he was in an area full of fog. In this region, time seems to pass very quickly. Soon, the mist gradually became thicker, and purple crystal blocks like snowflakes fell from the top of the head. The crystal blocks gradually condensed in a state visible to the naked eye, and finally turned into naked human beings one by one. They seem to have been created out of thin air, and there is an infinite terror in their bodies. Moreover, their physical bodies have no blood at all, they are completely pale, and their faces look very terrifying. When Li Feng tried to get close to them, he found that with all his strength, he couldn't take another step forward. It appalled him. What's even more incredible is that the aura emitted by these white people actually echoed with a certain power in Li Feng's body. What are these? Li Feng's pupils shrank suddenly, and he quickly retreated, trying to get out of the range of these white people. Because he clearly felt that the power in his body was faintly about to be sucked away. What to do? Li Feng knew in his heart that once the power in his body disappeared, then everything after 2.7 would be over. Don't say anything about OAA, even a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals will be able to smash him to pieces. Li Feng tried to use the power of the Steppenwolf template to leave, but found that the surrounding scene seemed to lock him, and he couldn't get out of his mind at all. So, he had no choice but to stop at a relatively safe place, trying to break through this misty world. However, at this moment, those white men, not far away, walked towards him step by step. To be precise, they are teleporting. The speed is no different from Li Feng, who possesses a lot of strength. It can even be said that every white man here has the same strength as him. Li Feng realized that there was no way for him to escape. But what he didn't expect was that these white people directly passed through his transparent body and stayed behind him. Chapter 107 Weird Space Open Black Lens Bracket Subscribe, Close Black Lens Bracket. However, at this moment, those white men, not far away, walked towards him step by step. To be precise, they are teleporting. The speed is no different from Li Feng, who possesses a lot of strength. It can even be said that every white man here has the same strength as him. Li Feng realized that there was no way for him to escape. But what he didn't expect was that these white people directly passed through his transparent body and stayed behind him. Li Feng reacted instantly. He turned his head, but saw an indescribable scene. These white men are mating with a group of white women who also have white skin. The passage of time did not change, but a few seconds later, Li Feng saw those white men tremble, and then one after another, the white women's bellies grew bigger and gave birth. A large piece of purple spar. Inside these crystals, there are small life forms, exuding fluctuations of the level universe. Then, after more than 10 seconds, the spar broke open, and the little life forms gradually grew taller, turning into the appearance of white people. In this way, the previous scene continued, day after day, year after year. 07. 5 minutes later, the entire misty world was covered with figures of white men and white women. Each of them contained the same terrifying aura as the Transcendor, and if they pulled out one casually, they could instantly kill Li Feng. What kind of creature is this? Li Feng broke out in a cold sweat. He stabilized his mind, knowing that these guys couldn't hurt him, and planned to continue observing. But at this moment, a white light suddenly appeared above his head, directly enveloping Li Feng's whole body. He looked shocked, and looked around, and there were several black holes visible to the naked eye. From these black holes, 4 different monsters crawled out slowly. They opened their ugly fangs and climbed towards Ji Feng bit by bit. These creatures are even stronger than me. Li Feng took a deep breath. As soon as this idea came out, the body of the Transcendent floating in the dark universe not far away suddenly opened his eyes. That moment, the entire pitch-black space is as dazzling as the sun. Endless white light rushed towards his face, crushing everything to pieces. Those planets with ugly revelations, those mechanical dragons waiting for an opportunity, and those demons who drilled out of black holes, were all purified and washed under the white light. Is this the power of the Transcendent? Li Feng's pupils shrank sharply, as if seeing a god. In the next second, the white light flashed again, and the corpse of the Transcendent got into the white light that wrapped Li Feng. The huge amounts of oppressive force almost crushed all the bones in his body. Destroyed in white light. Time stopped passing. Space seems to have no boundaries. Gray mist filled the surroundings, blinding all sight. No force can penetrate this area. Here, it seems to be some spatial dimension independent of reality. Li Feng looked around. and found that his body was wrapped in a layer of floating white mist. All senses were blocked. No matter how he uses his power, it is useless. It seems that in this space, there is a stronger force blocking his power. He had never felt this way before. What the hell kind of place is this? Li Feng's pupils shrank slightly. He didn't understand what happened. However, for the first time ever, he felt palpitations in his heart. This feeling made him feel very uncomfortable. Thinking of this, he raised his footsteps and walked in a random direction. In an unknown environment, it is a very bad choice to sit and wait. Maybe you are lucky enough not to encounter danger or trouble, but it will always wear out your patience. For Li Feng, there are not many things that can affect him on Earth, but he must take seriously the unknown threats beyond the Earth. Therefore, once such an impossible change occurs, the most important solution is to find a way to get rid of it. However, relying on his sensory ability, Li Feng walked around for a full 2 hours without noticing any biological fluctuations. Strange. If he guessed correctly, the reason why he came to this place was all because the body of the Transcendent touched him. At that moment, I felt that all the meridians in my body were broken, and all the blood stopped flowing. But in this area, he clearly knows that he is still alive. As soon as such thoughts appeared in my mind, a strange fluctuation suddenly appeared. Li Feng raised his brows sharply, and looked not far away. There, a large area of fog seems to have encountered some nemesis, giving way to a large area. In the area, there are 4 or 5 figures with pale flesh naked. These creatures. Li Feng has seen all of them. They are the former, white people. Li Feng hid in the mist aside, squinting at all this. His perception has all disappeared, so it is impossible to see any difference from these figures. But that pale face without a trace of blood made him feel palpitations. These figures made chirping sounds, which didn't sound like the universal language of the universe, but rather like the words derived from a unique race. At this moment, their eyes suddenly looked at the place where 813 Li Feng was. Li Feng tensed up all over, and just about to step back, he found that his body was floating in the air as if being restrained by some kind of force. In front of him, a white man, who looked like the leader, raised his palm to point at Li Feng and grabbed him in front of him. Effortless. Feeling the suffocation pain coming from his neck, Li Feng took a deep breath. His pupils widened suddenly, and all the power in his body burst out. Immediately, a huge amount of white phantom appeared behind Li Feng. However, this did not make the white man in front of him have any special reaction. He just raised his eyes slightly, let go of his hand, and put Li Feng down. Ahem. Li Feng twisted his neck, and asked with a murderous look in his eyes, "Where is this?" As soon as these words came out, all the white people turned their attention to him. A creature of a foreign race, you don't have blood in your body that surpasses the gods. The leading white man said lightly. His eyes were only white, emitting a faint white light, and his voice became a language that Li Feng knew well. Beyond the Protoss. Li Feng frowned, and asked in his heart in bewilderment, "System, what is that?" Ding. The Transcendence Protoss is the birthplace of the Transcendence. It is a mysterious race in the universe with a strong sense of blood. Please pay attention to the host. The system will fall into a deep sleep. Chapter 108. Are you threatening me? Please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. There was a sound of the system shutting down in his head. I wipe. Li Feng's face darkened, thinking that you simply fell asleep like this. Then what do I do? However, calmly, he still did not reveal any emotional fluctuations. Alien creatures invade the territory and exterminate them. After the words fell, these white men raised their hands and grabbed out of thin air. A dazzling snow-white ice blade pierced straight towards the unarmed Li Feng. Li Feng suddenly felt completely alone. But just then, white light flickered behind him, and a figure came out vaguely. As soon as this figure appeared, the dazzling ice blade instantly turned into ashes. At the same time, the white mist in the entire space became more dense. It has been detected that it is a creature from the solar system, with the inheritance of the top bloodline. The leading white man saw this figure, and spoke again in a rather mechanical tone. He exchanged glances with his companions around him, and actually surrounded Li Feng directly. "What do you want to do?" Li Feng stared at them coldly with a defensive face. But what he didn't expect was, these white people actually knelt down towards him together. "Survivor, we have been waiting for you for a long time." The loud voice came into Li Feng's ears, making him dumbfounded. "Survivor. What is it again?" Li Feng subconsciously glanced at the figure behind him, and through the bursts of white light, guessed that this was the body of the Transcendent. No matter how stupid he was, he understood something at the moment. "Get up." Li Feng coughed and said to the group of creatures. "Since you know me, please explain your doubts to me." Several Caucasians nodded and stood up, not puzzled by Li Feng's words, and did not move extra. "Survivor, please tell us your name." The leading white man said respectfully to Li Feng, "This will be the most memorable moment in the history of our clan. My name is Li Feng. Who are you? Why did you bring me to this place?" Li Feng said calmly, "If you tell me that you are here specially to wait for me, then it seems logically unreasonable. The so-called logic, in the eyes of the Transcendent Protoss, is just a machine that can be operated anytime and anywhere." The leading white man said to Li Feng with the pride of a god in his tone, "It is not we who brought you here, but it's the figure behind you. As long as you agree to go back with us, then you will fully grasp everything I said." "Going back with you guys? To Ming Li?" Li Feng was puzzled. "According to my guess, this is just a reality dimension separated from my planet. Are you creatures living in this space?" "No, this is just the resting place left by the Son of God." The leading white man sighed with sadness on his face. "Unfortunately, he is dead, and we haven't even found his body." Li Feng vaguely realized who he was talking about. A Transcendent who has become a corpse. "We have detected his inheritance from your body." The leading white man said to Li Feng again, "Also, we also know that you have not accepted his power. It is an honor to tell you that we can help you complete all of this." Hearing this, Li Feng's pupils suddenly shrank. Absorb the power of the Transcendent. This is definitely a great temptation. But it didn't make him lose his mind. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "I don't know your origins at all. I need to know all the unknown things. Only people of this clan can know." The leading white man said, "Survivor, if you are willing to become a member of the race beyond the gods, then you will get all the secrets." "What's in it for me?" Li Feng asked subconsciously. However, this remark caused the others to scream inconceivably. "Survivor, we don't need to explain to you all the complicated things about the Transcendent Protoss." The leading white man sighed, seeming a little hasty. "You just need to know that the power that exists in you is nothing compared to the Transcendent Protoss." "Are you threatening me?" Li Feng's eyes turned cold, and he asked back, "I'm not a person who likes to accept threats." "No, Survivor, we just want to tell you that in a certain future, your existence will bring infinite changes and possibilities to this universe." The leading white man showed a smile at the corner of his mouth, and said, "Even let it usher in the future. 10 new civilizations." After all, he waved one hand towards the back, and all the mist dissipated, revealing his true face. Thousands of instruments filled with green liquid emerged, and pale bodies were sealed inside. And as the fog dissipated, the figure in the instrument opened his eyes at the same time and looked at Li Feng. The whites of the eyes without pupils exude a pale golden light, especially conspicuous in the green liquid. This is the raw liquid of life, a potion that can only be made by surpassing the gods. With reverence on his face, the leading white man led Li Feng to the instrument, pointed to the liquid inside and said, "The function of the potion is to revive the body of a dead god, but it requires the existence of the original soul." "Resurrection. Isn't this a very simple matter?" Li Feng asked curiously. After he has the power of Time Gem and the god of symbiosis, he feels that he can control life and death at will, so this is not a strange thing in his eyes. "Survivors, you have to clarify one thing." The leading white man stared at Li Feng seriously, and said word by word, "The divine body that surpasses the god race is not a low-level life form in your galaxy that can't even control its own destiny. It can even be said that its existence is the definition of the existence of the entire universe. Quote. Hearing this, Li Feng's eyes kept flashing with astonishment. He had a preliminary understanding of such a race. In general, the Transcendence Protoss is an existence independent of the universe, and can define all changes in the universe through its own power. All the dimensions of space are controlled by the Transcendent Protoss. The leading white man continued, I hope you don't misunderstand, we are not the builders of the universe, we are the maintainers of the universe. Maintenance. Then what kind of existence is OAA? Li Feng looked at him suspiciously and asked. The OAA and the Life Tribunal were indeed born in the name of maintaining the order of the universe, so why is there another race beyond the gods? Could it be that these guys like to manage the universe? Hundreds of millions of years ago, the Transcendence Protoss hadn't experienced that upheaval, and all the divine beings in the entire universe respected us. The leading white man had a sad look in his eyes. Said, however, from that time on, the Transcendent Protoss began to decline gradually as if they had suffered heavy losses. All the younger generations lost the supernatural power in their blood and became creatures like pets without any plasticity. At that time, we the Patriarch guessed that it may be because the bloodline has been worn out after so many generations, and only the clansman who has the strongest supernatural power in his body can be found to integrate, so as to be able to continue to Descendants Li. Chapter 109 This is the Beyond Protoss Open Black Lens Bracket. Please subscribe, Close Black Lens Bracket. He paused and closed his eyes. However, this search took hundreds of millions of years. Even if it surpassed the Protoss, it could not resist the passage of such a long time. Coupled with the exhaustion of the blood in the body, people of the same race began to stepping into old age. The God Master used the last power to build these instruments and life essence, and sealed the clansmen who had only a trace of supernatural power in them. You mean, these soaked bodies are descendants of races beyond the gods? Li Feng took a deep breath and asked in surprise, doesn't that mean that once they wake up? Yes, survivor. The leading white man nodded vigorously and said, the reason why I call you a survivor is because you were the only creature that came here with blood inheritance for hundreds of millions of years. As long as you complete our pleading, then all the clansmen in these instruments can be resurrected. If I revive them, what consequences will it bring to the universe? Li Feng asked with fear in his eyes. Just one transcendent has already made him so powerful, what would happen if thousands of transcendent clansmen were added together? Step back 10,000 steps and say 317, if they want to attack the Earth or the universe, I'm afraid Jifeng still won't be able to stop it in a short time, right? Consequences? No, there are no consequences. The leading white man affirmed, as long as the Transcendent Protoss can wake up from the universe, then everything will return to its original state. We will become the rulers of the universe, and will replace all orders and all creatures. Everything will be under our control. There was a hint of madness and arrogance in his tone, but there was not much suspicion of lying. Because Li Feng with sharp eyes can see that the clansmen who surpassed the gods probably have huge amounts of ambition since they were born. So much so that they have existed for hundreds of millions of years, and they still survived with this status. Doesn't that mean that I can only be regarded as a pawn in your resurrection plan? In the end, you just use me. Li Feng smiled lightly and said, sorry, I'm not the kind of person you imagined, my ambition is beyond your comprehension. You will become the patriarch of the god race. The leading white man suddenly said this, and asked, what if this is the case? I don't want to be a patriarch, I just want the power to stand at the pinnacle of this universe. Li Feng said with endless arrogance and wildness in his eyes, I want any planet, any race, any creature, can't stop me. I want to become the god worshipped by billions of creatures in the universe. Survivor, I can tell you very clearly that this is the direction supported by the patriarchs who have surpassed the gods in the past. The leading white man said with a touch of madness in his eyes, the people who surpassed the gods can achieve you. What should I do to revive them? The expression on Li Feng's face gradually became restrained. He took a deep breath and asked. It's very simple. As long as you unite with the life queen of our god race, you will be able to revive these people and give birth to a god baby with supernatural power to continue the bloodline. The leading white man explained, all of this is based on your complete beyond the bloodline combination. Birth. Li Feng asked with a strange expression on his face, could it be what I understand in my heart? Yes, survivor. The leading white man nodded expressionlessly, and said, the Queen of Life is not a single individual, she is a creature condensed from the source of power of the Tree of Life, with the full body of the God race. And the thinking of the Protoss, only everyone who takes over the position of the Patriarch is eligible to see. Therefore, they have different forms, and everything is taken from the thinking of the Patriarch. And the previous Queen of Life, along with the previous Patriarch, disappeared into the universe when her life was exhausted. Quote. Aha, so, I can get a life queen too. Li Feng glanced at the leading white man and said, she wouldn't look like you. The leading white man's mechanical thinking didn't understand the meaning of Li Feng's words, he just looked at Li Feng in confusion, and said, survivor, I have already explained that the Queen of Life is produced by the Tree of Life. Fruit. The shape is determined by each patriarch, and we cannot interfere. Quote. That's good. Li Feng licked his scarlet lips, straightened up, and said, I'm ready, let's start. No, now is not the time. The words of the leading white man poured cold water on Li Feng's head. He asked puzzledly, why? The reality dimension we are in now is not the homeland of the Protoss. The leading white man shook his head and explained, and everything you see now is just the soul memory we left behind through the gods' telekinesis. Quote. What? Li Feng frowned and said, you mean, you don't exist here? But why do you have a substantial body? Because this dimension of reality is the space defined by me. The leading white man said, I can materialize anything here, and define time and space. However, since the person has already waited, it can also there is no need to continue to exist. Quote. Too powerful, is this your power? Open up a dimension from the universe. Li Feng was surprised. No, this is a power beyond that of the Protoss. The leading white man grinned and said, stop talking nonsense, survivor, next I will give you the coordinates of the Tree of Life, which is about 10 million away from the galaxy you are currently in. Billions of light years, you need to find it and wake it up. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Feng felt a prototype of a planet that looked like a tree appeared in his mind, as well as the coordinates of the star. In the unknown universe. Li Feng frowned and said, and there is a long distance from the known universe. The so-called unknown universe is just a kind of awe of the unknown by tiny creatures. The leading white man said, the reason why the Tree of Life exists in it is because there is a huge gap with the current known universe. The difference, I don't quite understand the specifics, so I can't explain it to you. Quote. Yeah. Li Feng nodded slightly, and said, after I go out from here, I will use my own power to rush to the coordinates where the Tree of Life is located. It may take some time, after all, my power is not currently able to easily reach the unknown universe among. It doesn't matter, we have been waiting for thousands of years, what is such a short time? The leading white man raised his arm and waved, the surrounding fog thickened again, covering his companions, only the outline of the figure was vaguely revealed. Chapter 110 Instant Kill. Please subscribe, close black lens bracket. Then, he took out a deep purple spar from nowhere and handed it to Li Feng. There is a strange shaped creature sealed in the spar, which looks like a special symbol. If you want the Tree of Life to discover your existence, you must use this transcendent spar, which symbolizes the identity of the transcendent god race. The leading white man explained, only in this way can you see it. When Li Feng was about to say something, the white people in front of him all disappeared out of thin air. This dimension of reality calmed down again, as if nothing had happened. Recalling the dream-like scene in his mind, Ji Feng gradually felt that all the power in his body had recovered. It was also at this moment that a killing sound with a crisp voice suddenly sounded. Naughty animal! Give me death! Li Feng suddenly raised his head and looked not far away. Hela, who has returned to her divine body, is being attacked by a group of hundreds of demons who emerged from the black hole. These demons all have ugly faces and scarlet blood on their bodies. And Hela held the night sky sword in her hand, and the green light formed a set of majestic armor on her body, which looked extremely heroic. But helplessly, the number of demons was too large, almost blocking all her escape routes. Li Feng saw this scene, and when his brows were furrowed, his whole body was covered in silver. Just as he was about to make a move, a body suddenly stood in front of him, looking straight at him. It is the body of the Transcendent. Step aside. Li Feng's face turned cold, and he scolded softly. But this body didn't move at all, it just stood in front of Li Feng, unmoved. Get out of the way. Seeing that Hela was in danger, Li Feng gritted his teeth, and his right hand was transformed into a huge thorn under the genetic modification of the symbiote god, and stabbed towards the chest of the Transcendent. Laugh. Bright lights flashed. The giant thorn pierced through the Transcendent's body, but did not cause any damage. The Transcendent still didn't respond. Li Feng regained his composure and realized that this was just a body with no soul but only strength. No matter what he said, he would definitely not be able to hear or understand it. B. How to do? Li Feng suddenly had a bold idea. He raised his finger, pressed the forehead between the Transcendent's body, and poured his spiritual power into it. Whoosh whoosh. A terrifying suction force swallowed up Li Feng's mental strength, and unexpectedly got into the body of the Transcendent without hindrance. Li Feng's eyes widened suddenly, and he looked down at his hands. Turning back again, he looked at himself with blank eyes. I see. Li Feng exulted in his heart, I actually entered the body of a Transcendent. Does that mean? Can I use his power? Li Feng took a deep breath, tried to raise his right hand, and aimed at the hundreds of demons who surrounded and killed Hela. With a flick of your finger. A weak ripple was stimulated, and at a speed exceeding the speed of light, all the demons were evaporated instantly. Everything returns to silence. Second kill. Li Feng was ecstatic in his heart. Is this the power of the Transcendent body? At the moment, he was still wrapped in white light all over his body. As the Transcendent in the universe, no one knows or sees its true face. The moment Li Feng raised his right hand, the white light on his face gradually dissipated, and a slightly handsome face, which was almost similar to Li Feng's, gradually appeared. Therefore, Li Feng at this moment vaguely felt that he was a god in the universe. However, as soon as this idea came out, all his spiritual power was violently crushed by the body of the Transcendent, and the tearing pain hit instantly. Li Feng felt trembling all over, pulled out his soul without any hesitation, and returned to his body. The body of the Transcendent also lost its movement and stood in place. Are you resisting me? There was no blood on Li Feng's face, and his soul was extremely weak. Previously, if he slowed down one step further, his soul might be completely crushed, and his body would also become a motionless corpse. This is the worst injury he has ever suffered. Soon he figured out why. Using the Transcendent body consumes too much, and with my current state of soul, I can't bear it at all. If it is possible, can I absorb the power in his body, the day point white point, into my body? Li Feng looked down at himself. This way, although the progress is slow, but be more steady, it will hurt my body. As soon as the voice fell, the voice of the system sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for triggering the side mission. Absorb 100% of the power of the Transcendent, and rebuild the Transcendent gods. After completing the mission, you will get a reward. The number of times you can draw a god level template x1. 0. Seeking flowers. Special reminder. With the current power level of the host, it is temporarily unable to absorb the power of the Transcendent, not even 1%. It is recommended that the host put the body of the Transcendent into the system space until it goes to the Tree of Life. Hearing this kind voice, Li Feng finally breathed a sigh of relief. This is his first exposure to scenes outside of the Marvel Universe. It never occurred to him that there was a Transcendent Protoss behind the Transcendent. This group may be the mysterious group second only to OAA in the universe. It was also very strange to him. However, now that he has come into contact with this secret, he will naturally not choose to give up. Mainly, The feeling of using the transcendent body just now is so cool. One finger can instantly kill so many, 4 different images. This is something Li Feng has never felt before. According to the system, he quickly absorbed the body of the transcendent into the system space, and the ever-present dazzling white light around him was completely gone. And Hela, who was not far away, obviously didn't understand what happened. She only saw a faint white light flashing, and all the demons around her turned into air. Just when she was wondering, Li Feng quickly appeared in front of her. "Honey, are you okay?" Hela suddenly turned around and threw herself into Li Feng's arms. "It's good that you're fine, you scared me to death." "What happened, honey?" Li Feng gently stroked her back and asked, "Why did you suddenly disappear just now?" "The burial garden of the gods has opened a hole leading to other dimensions, which should be done by the demons here." Hela hurriedly took Li Feng's hand and explained, "This place was originally a peaceful place for the gods, maybe because of some kind of mysterious force that I don't know has broken the balance here, causing this group of demons who died with the gods to be resurrected. We must leave here as soon as possible, and then block the exit of God's burial garden to prevent Asgard from being invaded." Quote, "Okay." Li Feng's heart moved slightly, and he guessed that this might have something to do with the group of white people he had seen, but he didn't tell Hela about it. For a god like Hela, it is a kind of existence that he doesn't understand at all, and bringing it up will only increase troubles. The two quickly returned to the exit of the god's burial garden through the power of Hela. Chapter 111 Ambitious Open Black Lens Bracket. Please subscribe, Close Black Lens Bracket. After coming out of the god's burial garden, Hela officially returned to her own divine body, and she no longer needed to share the same body with the White Queen. But the trouble is that the forcible extraction of the soul from the White Queen's body this time has a great impact on her. Both Hela and Li Feng feel deeply distressed by this, and they immediately sent the White Queen to the temple of the Asgard Temple, let her have a good rest under the nourishment of divine power. Afterwards, under Frigg's arrangement, Hela officially started. Enthroned. As the newest God King, Lord of the 9 realms, Hela has too many things to deal with. Li Feng didn't bother her, but took the initiative to accompany the White Queen, looking around the scenery of Asgard in his free time. When Hela is done with work, it will not be too late for the 3 of them to live a happy life. August 20th, when Hela was busy gathering power and establishing her own authority. The rest of the 9 realms are not peaceful at all. Although the Earth is also within the 9 realms, they don't know what happened to Asgard due to some special reasons. But in several other worlds in the 9 realms, it is not so peaceful. For example, among the 9 realms, Warner Protoss. As another Protoss besides the Aesir Protoss, Odin's family, this Protoss is headed by Njord, the god of the sea, and is also a powerful Protoss second only to Asgard. Before Odin sat on the throne of the King of God, the patriarch of the Vanir Protoss had a protracted war with him. Odin, who was in full swing at that time, naturally won the battle smoothly, and the 2 sides signed a peace treaty based on this. As a guarantee, they offered Frey and Freya as hostages, and got the stupid Heinir and the wise giant Mimir from Li Ding. And between the two, under the leadership of Asgard, they have maintained stability for tens of thousands of years. At the moment, sitting on the seat of the Protoss, the leader of the Vanir Protoss, Njord, is listening to the report of the tribe with a serious face. "You say, the leader of Asgard, my old friend, is dead. Is that true?" Njord, frowning tightly, asked with a look of disbelief. "The great Protoss team leader, I am very sure that this news is true. Many people in Asgard have witnessed this scene. Odin is indeed dead. The despicable Hela, the goddess of death, her daughter who accompanied Odin in the 9 realms, killed Odin. This is a struggle to seize power and usurp the throne. Hela, the goddess of death, is a heinous sin." The men kneeling in front of Njord responded respectfully. As for the despicable and shameless words in his mouth, it is naturally adding oil and vinegar. In fact, the people of Asgard have accepted that Hela became the king of gods. Although they are dissatisfied with Hela's killing of Odin, under Frigg's explanation, the people of Asgard also understand how Odin treats Hela, so accept the existence of Hela. Moreover, Asgard has always respected the strong. As long as the strength is strong, it will be a matter of time to be loved by others. To put it bluntly, Asgard is a place with noble blood flowing in its bones. Since the establishment of the Nine Realms, this race has been extremely warlike. How could it not respect strength, the strong? Good. Great. Odin, you have today too. You bastard who has lived for hundreds of millions of years, died so well. After confirming the authenticity of the news, Njord immediately applauded excitedly, completely disregarding his majesty as the patriarch of the Protoss. He is so excited. Good kill. Hela was so right. This guy, Odin, should have died a long time ago. If Odin hadn't been lucky enough to win against him back then, he would probably be the one sitting in the Asgard temple now. This is the true thought of Njord, and it is also the true thought of most of the patriarchs of the gods in the Nine Realms. Everything that Odin has shown since his debut is too strong. At the beginning, when Odin was still alive, other gods in the Nine Realms had to bow their heads and worship him, otherwise they would suffer from Odin's destruction. This is one of the reasons why no race in the Nine Realms dares to offend Asgard. If so, that's great. That old guy Odin is finally dead. These guys who have been suppressed by Odin for a lifetime can finally stand up. Send my order. We immediately summon the army and march towards Asgard. In the name of the Protoss, avenge Odin's death. Njord sneered, calmed down his mood, and gave orders to his subordinates. Revenge. Avenge the fart. For the things that Odin did before, who is full enough to avenge him? Njord has already made a plan in his heart, and when the time comes, he will overthrow Hela's position as the God King in the name of avenging Odin. Then, he will grandly make Thor the new God King, and he will order his own people to station in Asgard to assist Thor. To put it bluntly, I want to make Thor a puppet God King, and Njord can use this to truly control the Nine Realms and become the King of God behind the scenes. He has been waiting for this opportunity for nearly tens of thousands of years. As for the success of this plan, Njord has full confidence. It's fine if he can't beat Odin, but can't he even beat Odin's daughter? Odin, an old guy, suffered so many injuries during the United Front, it is inevitable that his strength will decline after he gets old. Moreover, he didn't plan to go alone, but planned to ask a few more helpers to go together. With his status as the king of the Warner Protoss, is he afraid that he won't be able to find a helper? Njord, who had made up his mind, thought happily, as if he had already seen the picture of himself becoming the Lord of the Nine Realms. In fact, among the Nine Realms, there are two 3.1 Protoss that can be called the strongest, second only to the Aesir Protoss. The first is Njord's Vanir Protoss, headed by Njord. The other two are Muspelheim, a land of flames guarded by the giant Sturtle. The former, that is, the Warner Protoss, was an old rival with the Aesir Protoss in ancient times. Between the two major Protoss, no one obeyed the other, and countless wars broke out between them. After Odin was born, he became the Aesir Protoss, chasing the Warner Protoss and beating him violently. In the end, the Vanir Protoss bowed their heads and recognized Odin's identity as the king of the Nine Realms, and they considered themselves ministers. The Muspelheim family never showed their faces in the Nine Realms, until Odin came to rule their country, and the giant Stur disappeared. So, why is he mentioned? Because, in the Nine Realms, there has always been a legend. Chapter 112 The Visitor is not kind. Open black lens bracket. Please subscribe, close black lens bracket. The name of this legend is Twilight of the Gods, and the protagonist of the legend is Sturtle. So, Muspelheim deserves to be included in this list. At the moment, Hela, who was busy enthroning, didn't even know that her position of God King had not yet been firmly established, and a new challenger was about to usher in. In a dark area of the universe, a huge fleet is sailing slowly, and there is no one inhabited everywhere. Located in the largest main ship, there is a tall and dark purple Titan clansman who is listening to the report of his subordinates. This subordinate has an ugly face, but his words and deeds are very elegant, and he has a sense of nobility. He is Ebony Maw. Great Father, we have investigated clearly that Odin, the God King of the Nine Realms, has died. As for why Thanos is called the Father, it is because Thanos is the adoptive father of General Obsidian. Without exception, they are actually the sons of Thanos. Are you sure? I, for one, don't like fake news. After Thanos heard Ebony Maw's report, he turned around directly and confirmed to Ebony Maw. The huge body casts a large O7 shadows, giving Ebony Maw a huge amounts of oppressive feeling. When facing Thanos, even Ebony Maw panicked. But soon, he nodded. It has been established that Odin is indeed dead. After hearing this passage, Thanos nodded, the excitement in his heart did not show. How long? The old guy finally died. God knows how much Thanos wanted Odin to die soon. Very early on, Thanos had already made plans for God's burial garden in the Nine Realms. But unfortunately, Thanos was still very young at that time, and Odin had already become the king of God ruling the Nine Realms. His power was definitely not enough to cause any harm to Odin, but he was educated. Those warships sent to Asgard were smashed by Odin before they approached the outer galaxies of Asgard, and turned into countless space junks. Since that incident, Thanos knew that if he wanted to get Asgard's surrender, he had to find a way to defeat Odin. Dude, this is a hurdle that cannot be avoided. Finally, until now, Odin is dead. Thanos, who was once defeated by Odin, wished to drive the spaceship to Earth immediately and take the infinite gems back. However, Thanos still suppressed his own thoughts. He knew he couldn't call, he had to go step by step. After suffering the loss of recklessness, Thanos is much wiser. Even the matter of collecting infinite gems has been well planned in detail. Just take it one step at a time. Thanos has absolute confidence in himself. His dream, his ambition, will one day become a reality. Ebony Maw, you go to Nidalee and meet those dwarfs, they can start forging my Infinity Gauntlet. Thanos looked indifferent, and ordered coldly to Ebony Maw. Forging the Infinity Gauntlet is the first step in collecting infinite gems. If there is no Infinity Gauntlet, even if he has collected 6 infinite gems, it will be useless. As ordered, Ebony Maw bent slightly, turned and left. Ebony Maw strives for perfection in anything Thanos asks him to do, and this time is no exception. Thanos smiled when Ebony Maw disappeared. He clenched his fist with one hand, his face was full of madness. The strongest power in the universe will eventually belong to me. Hela now has no clue about the storms that are looming. She is taking over the rights of Asgard and preparing for Odin's funeral. After all, Odin is the god king of the previous generation, and the funeral still needs to have enough cards. Although Odin was killed by her, but Asgard originally had this rebellious gene. Isn't that why Odin came here? And with Frigga supporting her behind her back, who dares to say no? Definitely, private criticism is definitely indispensable. After all, patricide really has a bad reputation. There is no way. Her feud with Odin is irreconcilable. As for those criticisms, let them be. Also, in order to rule Asgard better, Hela is also constantly spreading the achievements of Asgard through her own men. It is undeniable that Hela made too many contributions to Odin before he became the king of God. Asgard can have the current prosperity, absolutely cannot do without the contribution of Hela. It's just that all the achievements of Hela in the past have been erased by Odin. Naturally, Hela wants the people of Asgard to remember the credit she has left for Asgard. After all, the belief of the people can make her ascend the throne better. In fact, most of the people of Asgard don't care who their god king is. As long as their god king is Asgard's bloodline, and the strength is strong enough, it will be fine. It is also for this reason that there are not many voices dissatisfied with her in Asgard now. But at this moment, Hela suddenly got a piece of bad news. Njord, the god king of the Vanir Protoss, actually summoned some reclusive gods to overthrow her, the so-called new god king. To put it simply, those guys saw that Odin was dead and planned to make trouble. I don't want to take the initiative to start a war if I can. After all, now is the time for the handover of rights and interests. However, if someone takes the initiative to deliver it to your door, it is another matter. If she can perform well in the face of those enemies, none of the people of Asgard will disobey her rule. Nothing strengthens the king's authority more than winning a war. Thinking of this, a sneer appeared on the corner of Hela's mouth. Those guys who want to take advantage of this opportunity to make trouble, as long as you dare to come, don't even think about running away. I, the god of death, put the words here. Soon, Odin's funeral arrived as scheduled. Under the auspices of Frigga, Odin's body was put into the flower boat, and it will float along the river of Asgard to the Sea of Gods, and after a century, it will turn into the divine splendor that protects Asgard and continue to protect it. Asgard. This is also the tradition of Asgard. However, just when Odin's body was about to go down the river, a group of uninvited guests suddenly appeared on Bifrost. Njord led a large group of Vanir Protoss army, and the helpers he found came directly to the land of Asgard under a deep blue light. Moreover, he was not polite at all, and directly released his coercion, changing the weather in the entire Asgard. Those who come are not good. Chapter 113 The Battle of Rectification. Open black lens bracket. Please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. Hela, where is it? I am the patriarch of the Vanir Protoss, and I have come to seek justice for the death of the king of God Odin. You damn patricide, damn it. Njord spoke first, with huge amounts of voice, spreading throughout Asgard. His words, also at this moment, immediately aroused the disgust of the people of Asgard. Who are you? Breaking into Asgard with such arrogance? Still telling Asgard's new god king to die? Would you like to match? No matter what Hela has done, it is also an internal matter of the Aesir Protoss, and it is your turn to give advice from an outsider. Moreover, Njord and the others were indeed too arrogant. They actually crossed Asgard's defenses and broke into Asgard's Bifrost without even saying hello. In the past, only the Asgards had such arrogant capital. When will it be your turn for the Warner Protoss? Just at the moment. Frigga came out from the crowd, and she looked at Njord, who was extremely arrogant. Her face gradually darkened. There is no doubt that Frigg knew Njord. Not only because of her status as a queen, but also because she was originally a member of the Warner Protoss. Although Frigga is the queen of Asgard, she was born in Vanaheim. So in essence, Frigga and Odin are married. That was when the Aesir Protoss and the Vanir Protoss were still at war. The cruel war made the two great Protoss feel exhausted, and the patriarchs of the two great Protoss hoped to end this meaningless war. And the best way to end the war is undoubtedly to become in-laws and exchange etiquette with each other. Thus, Frigg became Odin's wife. The war between the Aesir Protoss and the Vanir Protoss ended. However, during the political marriage between Frigga and Odin, she also developed a deep relationship. This is also the main reason why Odin did not lead the army across the territory of the Warner Protoss. So far, Frigga has completely regarded herself as the queen of the Aesir Protoss, not a member of the Warner Protoss. Therefore, when facing the menacing Njord, Frigg's expression was very angry. God King of the Vanir Protoss, you have to explain clearly the purpose of invading Asgard privately. Do you know where this place is? You are so rude. When Frigga was around Odin, she always felt very kind. But in fact, she is also a dignified person. Just like now, when protecting Asgard's face, she took the initiative to stand up and confront Njord without showing weakness. Although Odin's death was a regret in Frigga's heart, Frigga knew that it was Odin's own choice, and she must respect Odin's choice. Besides, even if Hela goes too far, it's an internal matter of Asgard, and it's your turn for foreigners to point fingers. Njord apparently did not expect Frigg to stand up and scold him. This is completely different from what he expected. According to common sense, shouldn't Frigga ask for his help and use his power to kill Hela, the big filial daughter, who seeks power and position? Moreover, Odin was obviously killed by Hela. Why did Frigg still look like nothing happened? Obviously, Njord, who didn't fully understand the whole thing, was a little at a loss about the current situation. However, this is not enough to shake his determination this time. He has waited long enough. Since Frigga didn't cooperate, he had no choice but to force it. Anyway, Odin is dead, now Asgard, who else can stop him? Odin is the god king of the 9 realms, the great lord of the 9 realms, and the best brother of the patriarch. This patriarch can't accept the best brother, and died at the hands of his daughter. This is a colossal act of treason. So, I have to do something for my brother Odin. I, in the name of the God King of the 9 realms, will avenge him. Hela needs blood for what she did. If you are sensible, get out quickly. Njord made such an attitude that I have a good relationship with Odin, and I am here to avenge Odin, which made Frigga even more angry. Brothers. Why doesn't she know? How did you Njord treat Odin before he became the king of God? When Odin is still alive, do you dare to call him a brother? Others don't know, don't you know? What happened to Odin's brothers, don't you have any idea? Now do you came here in awe-inspiring way to make connections. What a disgrace to the Warner Protoss. Frigg finally saw it. After Odin's death, Njord couldn't restrain his ambition and wanted to challenge the supremacy of the Aesir Protoss. This is also normal. The current stage of Hela's first accession to the throne is definitely the most chaotic years for Asgard. It is not difficult to understand that ambitious people want to seize this opportunity. Frigga actually worried about this in secret, and she was not sure whether Asgard could overcome this difficulty. If Hela can't give a strong response when the enemy comes to the door, her position as the king of the gods may become a complete joke. Looking at Frigg with a heavy face, Njord showed a sneer at the corner of his mouth. This is the effect he wants to see. After being suppressed by Odin for most of his life, he finally saw the dawn of turning around for the first time. More importantly, his ambitions are set. Since Odin is dead, why can't I become the 9 realms? Now is the best opportunity. Njord's sudden appearance naturally caught Hela's attention. In fact, Hela was with Li Feng, looking at Njord flying in the air, arrogantly accusing him, with a look of disdain. Wife, do you need me to help you solve this trouble? Li Feng smiled slightly and said kindly to Hela. For the money, he actually doesn't really want to interfere in these matters, and he shot Odin before, only because Odin provoked him first. However, Njord is obviously coming for Hela, and it is impossible for him to remain indifferent. But Hela shook her head, dismissing the idea of asking Li Feng to help. My dear, this is a war between Asgards. I must respond to him as the king of God. Hela had a look of confidence on her face. She knew that she had to solve Njord's trouble herself. Since Odin passed the position to her, she is the god king of the 9 realms, and she should show the strength to suppress all races in the 9 realms. In this regard, Li Feng really can't help, and there is nothing he has to do. Only when Hela defeats these foreign invaders through her own strength, can her position of God Lord be justified. From another point of view, it is also Hela's battle to rectify her name. Chapter 114. The Battle of the Ancients reappears. Please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. After greeting Li Feng, Hela called the giant wolf Fenrir, straddled the giant wolf's back, and walked towards Njord. Looking at it at a glance, it is domineering and awe-inspiring. Asgard's new god king, Hela, must respond to Njord's provocation. The appearance of Hela was quickly noticed by Njord, and the size of the giant wolf Fenrir was particularly conspicuous. Under the gaze of all eyes, Hela rode the giant wolf Fenrir and came to Njord. People of the Vanir Protoss, do you know what a death penalty is for trespassing on the Lord of the King of God? You guys, do you want to start a new battle of the 9 realms? Hela looked coldly, looking at Njord and the gods summoned by him, with huge amounts of oppression in her tone. Her words also angered the people of Asgard. War is what the people of Asgard love most. God King Hela is right, the Warner Protoss broke into Bifrost so arrogantly, isn't it just to provoke the war again? Ever since Odin ruled the 9 realms, Asgard has always been a bullying existence. When was it ever bullied? Although some Asgardians do not recognize Hela's position as the God King, this does not prevent them from sharing the same hatred against the foreign invaders and unanimously facing the outside world. In the end, no matter how wrong Hela is, it is their own Asgard. Hela will defend their Asgard interests and will fight for Asgard. And these outsiders will not. So, as it should be, the people of Asgard responded to Hela at this moment with their voices. When Hela's question sounded, the people of Asgard waved their weapons like a group of lunatics eager for war. Asgardians originally were war lunatics. This situation made Njord not frown. He didn't expect that Hela could gain a firm foothold in Asgard in such a short period of time, and it seems that Hela already has many supporters. Those people of Asgard actually willingly recognized Hela's position as the God King. What the hell is this doing? Hela is the one who killed her own father. The people of Asgard love user robbers so much. Such people become their God Kings, can they sleep off? Crazy. It's crazy. Njord couldn't figure out how Hela could gain the support of the Asgard people in such a short period of time. Odin's funeral isn't over yet. However, after thinking about it carefully, he felt that it didn't matter. Since the people of Asgard cannot be won over to overthrow Hela, the cruel God King, let him, Odin's good brother, come in person. Anyway, if he wants to become the Lord of the Nine Realms and lead the Warner Protoss to trample the Aesir Protoss under his feet, Hela must become the thing under his feet. Stupid patricide. This patriarch doesn't want to start a war, but comes here for revenge. Our King of God, my good brother Odin, was killed by you, a patricide, with despicable means, and you must pay for him. You are not qualified to be the Lord of the Nine Realms. Njord's divine voice, Lang Lang, uttered the high-sounding words that he had thought up a long time ago. If Odin heard what he said, he would be so angry that he would come back to life. After hearing Njord's words, Hela's response was even more simple and rude. She suddenly raised her hand and waved, a 3-meter-high night sky blade, containing bursts of death power, repeat Alder. In this case, I will send you to die. Njord's strength is not gained, after all, he is one of the oldest gods in the Nine Realms. Facing Hela's attack, he directly waved the weapon in his hand, and easily chopped off the blade of the night sky, shaking it into ashes. In an instant, the war broke out. Njord has been waiting for nearly tens of thousands of years, and has long wanted to replace the status of the Aesir Protoss and personally take the position of the King of God. Hela is eager to use a hardy battle to consolidate her status as a new god. So from the very beginning, there was no possibility of any reconciliation between the two parties. Boom. The Bifrost shook with a terrifying surge of divine power. Njord waved the trident in his hand, directly towards Hela. Hela did not show weakness, and went towards Njord. If Hela wants to inherit Odin's position and become the Lord of the Nine Realms, he must take this opportunity to defeat Njord. Only in this way can her position of God King be firmly established at the first step. That's why Hela didn't let Li Feng intervene. Moreover, now that Hela has regained her divine body, it is completely enough to deal with the troubles in front of her. Perhaps Njord's strength is good, but Hela's strength after returning to the divine body is even more terrifying. When facing Odin, she used the body of the soul, which caused such a big commotion. Now that she is in her prime, what is there to be afraid of facing an old god king from the Warner Protoss? So as soon as they fought, Njord discovered a very tragic thing. Hela's tyranny is completely beyond his imagination. He is actually not an opponent. Although he was not directly defeated, the fighting instinct displayed by Hela had already suppressed him. At the moment Hela is no longer wearing her iconic black armor, but put on a set of golden armor. From the moment she killed Odin, she was no longer the god of death. She is the king of gods. Not far away, Li Feng looked at Hela's back with love in his eyes. Today's Hela looks like a Valkyrie, full of heroism and less eerie. This kind of Hela has more desire to conquer. The fluctuation of the war quickly expanded. From the beginning it was just a battle between Njord and Hela, and gradually evolved into a battle between the Warner Protoss and the Aesir Protoss. Heimdall sent the Asgard soldiers to Bifrost under Frigg's command. The gods of the Nine Realms brought by Njord also started to attack Asgard at this moment. The strength of these gods of the Nine Realms is not strong, but when facing those ordinary Asgard soldiers, these gods of the Nine Realms seem a bit powerful. After all, no matter what, they all have the existence of gods, and their divine power is not comparable to that of soldiers. Therefore, at the beginning, Asgard was actually at a disadvantage. However, Hela is indeed powerful, but one person can press Njord to fight. The blade of the night sky has almost blocked all of Njord's retreats. The latter can only passively defend, and has no chance to actively attack. However, Hela was also distracted by Njord, unable to free up his hands to deal with these empty-stomach gods. Chapter 115 Ancient Celestials, Arrival, please subscribe, close black lens bracket. With the appearance of a flash of thunder, the situation began to become a little different. Thor appeared. In fact, Thor has been watching the battle in the temple. He was very troubled, debating whether to make a move or not. Because he still can't forgive Hela for killing Odin. Even between Hela and Odin, Odin is wrong first. Even if he understands that this is Odin's own choice, he is paying for what he has done. However, understanding is one thing, and emotional acceptance is another. Therefore, when he saw the Warner Protoss attack, he was extremely excited. He was pretty sure that if Hela had died at the hands of the Vanir, he would have celebrated it. This idea, until he saw the Asgard people died on Bifrost under the attack of the Vanir Protoss with his own eyes, he finally couldn't sit still. If Njord is only targeting Hela, Thor will not do anything. This group of alien races dared to do something to the people of Asgard, and dared to act wildly in this place where they were born and raised. He doesn't want to bear it. Then, a thunderbolt fell from the sky and hit Bifrost. Endless thunder is accompanied by Thor, his eyes are deep blue, and the light is shining, just like Thor. Although Mjolnir was crushed by Hela, Thor's strength after awakening did not decrease but increased. Dare to offend Asgard, I will die. After Thor landed, he directly found a god who was slaughtering Asgard soldiers, raised his hand and flashed lightning, but pierced his body in the blink of an eye. This sudden, foreign aid, instantly inspired the soldiers of Asgard, and their fighting spirit boiled up. Thor, who had no power to resist in front of Hela, was completely like a god of war when facing the other gods of the Nine Worlds. This is not surprising. When Thor obtained Mjolnir, he was able to kill and kill in the land of the Nine Realms. Now facing a group of post-modern gods who have the position of gods but do not have the powerful divine power of ancient times, they will naturally not take it seriously. After all, Thor is also a descendant of Odin. However, it has to be admitted that the strength gap between Thor and Hela is really huge. Until now, the people of Asgard were somewhat unfamiliar with Hela, so they were not affected by seeing Hela fighting Njord so bravely. But with the appearance of Thor, the soldiers of Asgard were instantly encouraged. What does Thor's heroic appearance represent in the eyes of these common people? Very simple. Fight for Hela. Acknowledged Hela's god king. Then these assholes, what qualifications do they have to question Hela's status as a god king? It has to be said that the existence of Frigga and Thor has brought a lot of help for Hela to inherit the throne. Without Frigga's support and Thor's acquiescence, Hela's throne of God King would not have been accepted by the Asgard people so quickly. With Thor's participation in the battle, Asgard has gradually gained the upper hand. If nothing else happens, the final winner of the war between the Aesir Protoss and the Warner Protoss will belong to the Aesir Protoss. Just like the ancient battle hundreds of millions of years ago, it ended exactly the same. After all, even Njord, the strongest of the Aesir Protoss, is not Hela's opponent. Moreover, the people of Asgard have not forgotten that standing behind Hela is a powerful creature who does not know where it came from, and it can crush Odin's eternal spear. As long as an existence of this level stays in Asgard, let alone a Warner Protoss, it will be fine. The other 8 races are attacking Asgard at the same time, so there is no need to worry, right? Although Li Feng didn't make a move, he also gave Asgard full confidence in the invisible. Even Odin is not Li Feng's opponent, and they believe that these fools of the Warner Protoss are even more impossible. So in this battle, the God Clan will win. Asgard will continue to stand at the pinnacle of the 9 realms and lead the 9 realms. Just when the war was heating up and the Warner Protoss was about to fail, the sky of Asgard suddenly became pitch black, and then a dazzling terrifying ray fell from the sky, cutting off Bifrost directly in the middle. Then, The terrible shockwave swept across, and a large area of Asgard was blown into ruins. This sudden power is incomparably tyrannical. This sudden change made the entire battlefield quiet. Hela also stopped what she was doing, and her beautiful eyes looked out into the sky with anger. Under the gaze of the crowd, 5 planet-like creatures slowly fell from the top of their heads. 0 flowers. These 5 planets have a strange face on the surface. The facial features are very similar to the human beings on the Earth, and the body shape almost occupies the entire sky of Asgard. In addition, between each planet and each planet, there is an existence like an iron chain of order, which binds them together and continuously releases infinite oppressive force. This is people from the celestial race. Perhaps, ordinary Asgardians don't know the identity of these things, but Hela, who has experienced the ancient battle, knows it very well. This is a powerful force that disappeared in the 9 realms in ancient times. The notorious Celestials. Members of the 5 celestial clans came hand in hand. When Odin conquered the 9 realms, he hunted down this group of Celestials who wantonly sowed the so-called power in the 9 realms. 0. Although they call themselves gods, and have the same body shape as the cosmic planet, they are simply a group of cosmic creatures with supernatural powers. Li Feng, who was standing in the temple watching the battle, had a playful look on his face when he saw this scene. This is not Celestials in Guardians of Galaxy. How did you get to Asgard? Li Feng is not clear about the origin between the 9 realms and the celestial race. But these planet-like monsters are still fresh in his memory. Star-Lord's father, Yi Zhe, is a member of the celestial race. The power they have can be said to have surpassed any god present. The sudden appearance of the celestial race was something that no one expected. Whether it's Njord or Hela, at the moment looked sullenly at the celestials who descended suddenly. At this moment, Hela and Njord, who were originally in conflict, even stopped the movements in their hands tacitly. As early as in ancient times, the celestials were the tumor in the 9 realms. Through their powerful planet power, they acted recklessly in the 9 realms, sowed evil results, and secretly devoured countless ethnic groups in order to expand their own strength. In other words, the Celestials once acted rebelliously and used sea as their supply base. Later, with the birth of Odin, and the fact that the Celestials actually set their minds on the people of Asgard, in a rage, Odin expelled the Celestials from the 9 realms and forced them to return to the unknown universe. Asgard is not likely to be further violated. Chapter 116 1 Against 5. Please subscribe, close black lens bracket. This is also a secret that few people know. Seeing this, some people may ask, since Odin was so strong at the beginning, why didn't he just eliminate the Celestials and use them to eliminate future troubles? In fact, Odin did try to do just that. But it doesn't work at all. This group of guys who call themselves the Celestial race, not to mention their huge size, can even shuttle freely in the universe through their evolved planet body, without worrying about the unknown dangers in space at all. In dangerous times, they can even attach to huge amounts of celestial bodies and become their satellite domains in order to save their lives. Generally speaking, the existence of the Celestial race is a special case in the universe. They originated from the 9 realms, and naturally possess the same power as gods like Odin. Now, after Odin's death, the gods are coming again these days. If it was a coincidence, no fool would believe it. Everyone can see why the celestial god clan reappeared in the 9 realms after disappearing these days. After all, the 9 realms are the most special existence in the entire universe. Even that ambitious purple potato essence once coveted it, let alone these celestials. Neither Njord nor Hela wanted to see this situation. If the celestials are really allowed to succeed, what majesty does Asgard have? At that time, Odin conquered this land one by one from the 9 realms, established authority, and drove away the invaders. Only then did the 9 realms have peace today. If the arrival of the Celestials disrupts this peace, I am afraid that the 9 realms in the future will completely fall into an endless chaos. Hela, don't allow this to happen. She is a god from ancient times, a person of the same era as Odin. In addition, most of the Asgardians looked at the 5 planets occupying the entire sky of Asgard with angry eyes. These arrogant guys seemed to have no intention of restraining themselves from the moment they appeared on the stage, and directly destroyed a piece of Asgard's urban area with terrifying divine power. This is definitely a trample on Asgard's majesty, a disregard for the God King, and it is a signal for war. However, whether it was the hostility towards Njord or Hela, or the anger of the people of Asgard, these 5 celestial gods, who fell from the sky were not taken seriously at all. Who are they? Celestials. Before Odin unified the 9 realms, they were the most feared existence in this territory. Why do you need to pay attention to these ants? Immediately after learning of Odin's death, they traveled from distant star fields, planning to turn the 9 realms into their supply base. This time, no mighty Odin will be able to stop them. Inferior creatures of Asgard, are you ready for the arrival of the Celestials? We will return to the 9 realms, Perdue and others. A hollow and ear-piercing trembling sound was released from the mouths of the 5 planets, enveloping the entire Asgard. Next moment 5 extremely dazzling beams of light rushed straight down and landed in the city of Asgard. Buzz buzz. At first, a pale light shrouded the city of Asgard, blocking the beam of light. This is the defensive array established by Odin since the establishment of Asgard. But 10 seconds later, 5 beams of light directly shattered the mask. The beam of light falls in the city, and a piece of gunpowder smoke rises. Court death. Seeing this scene, Hela's face became even more angry, and without any hesitation, he raised his hand, and thousands of night sky blades shot towards the 5 huge amounts of planets. However, these blades of the night sky didn't even touch the 100-meter range around them, and they were all reduced to ashes. Are you the girl who followed Odin to conquer the 9 worlds? Submit to us, but you will not die. The leading celestial planet said in a condescending tone. It's a joke that you trash, who were street rats hundreds of millions of years ago, dare to play wild in front of me, Asgard. Hela's face was extremely cold. How could she just sit idly by when these celestials dared to destroy the city of Asgard and kill her people? Thor, the Vanir Protoss will be handed over to you, and I will stop the celestial Protoss. Hela roared violently, and the kingdom of death covered her whole body. Like a sharp knife in the night sky, it rushed towards the 5 huge amounts of planets above her head. She wants to use the power of the new god to fight 5 against 1. 0 on Bifrost. Thor, who heard his sister's order, although his face was full of displeasure, did not disobey the order. Instead, he picked up a spear from the ground and flew towards Njord, the patriarch of the Vanir Protoss. No matter how stupid Njord is, he knows that Asgard is now riding a tiger and facing enemies. He did not choose to help Hela guard Asgard together, but set his sights on the Temple of Asgard. Only the one who survives to the end is the winner. As an old god of the same generation as Odin, he is naturally very clear about how tyrannical the Protoss guys have become these days. If he went up to confront those guys head-on at this time, there was at least an 80% chance of being buried here. Wouldn't it be nice to let Hela, the new god, take the initiative to hit the wall, and the Warner Protoss will secretly pick up the leak? Njord sneered, didn't take Thor seriously at all, raised his hand and there was a ray of light. Just because you are a brat, you want to stop me. After the words fell, the thunder on Thor's body was directly suppressed. This caught Thor off guard. But he did not give in, but became more and more courageous. Just when Njord was restrained, Hela fell into a difficult situation. The 5 planets of the celestial race had no intention of procrastinating at all, and made it clear that they planned to make a quick decision. The 5 life forms simultaneously used their strongest power to block Hela inside. Although Death Kingdom 2.5 has dimmed the brilliance of the planet's surface, Hela is not Odin after all. Facing the 5 high-level life forms that once occupied Asgard, they couldn't even get close to their bodies. Damn it! The situation got worse and worse, and Hela's face became even more gloomy. At this time, The 5 life forms of the celestial race saw the right opportunity, and at the same time burst out a huge cosmic ray like a beam of light, aiming at Hela's body. This cosmic ray is a dark ray that gathers unknown cosmic matter. With Hela's divine body, it is difficult to resist. Her pupils shrank suddenly, trying to avoid the ray, but found that her body couldn't move quickly. Unless she has a speed exceeding the speed of light, she can't avoid this ray at all. Chapter 117 One word, escape. Please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. Hela's heart tightened, and divine power quickly erected protective shields in front of him, but they were all penetrated by the rays. Seeing the impending disaster, a figure covered in silver light exploded out from the temple, and with a giant shadow of a blood axe, it lay across in front of Hela, cutting off all the tyrannical cosmic rays. Afterwards, this silver figure was covered with a layer of silver and black armor, and the inverted triangle pupils appeared behind him, as if Mephisto descended in an instant. Without saying anything, he punched one of the celestial planets. Boom! The planet was shattered. This was a very disharmonious scene. Even with the god of symbiosis as a backdrop, Li Feng's height still seemed very small in front of the celestial gods. However, when Li Feng's fist touched the surface of the celestial race's planet and a loud noise came out, the ending presented was very contrasting. The moment of collision. The surface of the celestials' planet began to shatter like a spider's web, and it continued to spread upwards. Completely shattered. 07 Afterwards, the planet turned into countless dim stones, broke through the wall of the Golden Hall, drew an arc, and scattered on the sea surface of Asgard. Seeing the utterance of this frightening scene, the other 4 members of the celestial clan were all surprised. What the hell is going on with this? Why is the ending completely different from what they expected? You must know that the celestial race planet should be regarded as the hardest product in the entire 9 realms. They wandered in the interstellar universe all year round, and a thick star field protective wall had already been formed on the surface of the star. Why did this silver-white figure suddenly appear, smashed to pieces with one punch? Where did the lower creatures come from? Dare to offend the celestials? The leading celestial planet scolded loudly. But Li Feng didn't care about his intentions at all, let alone give them time to react, flashed his figure again, and killed them. The reason why he has such a powerful power is because he is using the body of a transcendent. Under the cover of silver light, no one has discovered the truth at all. Moreover, in order not to make Hela and others feel too shocking, he did not choose to kill these 5 guys directly. Instead, he intends to crush it with one punch. Li Feng flew directly into the air, and after the flight track pulled out bursts of sonic booms, it hovered over the heads of the 4 celestial race planets, looking down at them. I'm curious, you trash who were expelled from the 9 realms by Odin in ancient times, how do you still have the courage to come back? Could it be that Odin is the only powerful guy in the 9 realms in your eyes? The 4 gods did not answer Li Feng's words, but slowly flew to the same height as Li Feng, and tacitly surrounded Li Feng in the center. They have already realized that the guy wrapped in silver light in front of them is definitely a terrifying powerhouse who hides deep. The faces of the 4 celestials' planets began to brighten continuously, and finally emitted a particularly dazzling energy ray, erupting towards Li Feng's body. This is a more powerful cosmic ray than before. Under this energetic cosmic ray, the surrounding space is slightly distorted, giving people a sense of space disorder. Everyone has no doubts about the terrifying lethality of this ray. Even Hela and Nerd are still terrified. They asked themselves that when facing the rays of the celestial race, they had no choice but to retreat. But Li Feng didn't have any intentions, his eyes as calm as water were also shining with deep white light at this moment. He lightly raised his finger, and flicked towards a planet. Call out. A beam of X-rays condensed from dark matter collided with cosmic rays. This is the ray derived from the power of the transcendent. As a result, the planet closest to Li Feng was pierced by a straight ray of light. Down below, Nerd and other gods were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. Even Hela at the back has a look of disbelief, it's unbelievable to the extreme. When did Li Feng become so tyrannical? Smash a planet with one punch. Although this is not a real planet, just some kind of organism with supernatural powers. But they are also powerful abilities that have existed since ancient times, and Li Feng actually ignored them at all. Simply outrageous. Thor's pupils stared at Li Feng firmly, and there was a desire for fighting in his eyes. The Celestials, who once couldn't even kill Odin and could only be expelled, couldn't even hold up a single move in front of Li Feng, and were instantly killed when they made a move. And at the moment, the remaining 3 celestial beings were dumbfounded. This power gap is too big, right? What made the 3 celestials even more desperate was that Li Feng's eyes had already turned to them. Escape back to the depths of the universe. At this moment, only one thought remained in the minds of the remaining 3 celestials. If they don't escape, they can only wait for death if they stay. The strength Li Feng showed before is definitely not something they can shake. It's okay if the energy is not enough, and the physique is directly crushed, and it can't even survive a punch. Such opponents, even if they live for hundreds of millions of years, can't find a point of resistance. There was no need to discuss. These members of the celestial race separated and ran away tacitly, opened the cosmic passage, and swooped out of the Asgard domain. In this way, at least it is possible to survive. It's a pity that Li Feng didn't intend to give them a chance to escape at all. Seeing the distressed figures of the 3 celestials running away, the murderous intent in Chen Feng's eyes did not weaken at all. A large amount of pitch-black white light converged in front of Li Feng, and finally an arrow made of pure dark matter condensed into one. With a thought of Li Feng, the star-destroying arrow turned into a black light and flew towards one of the celestial race planets. Without any suspense, the arrow caught up with the target and directly pierced through the planet of the celestial race, turning it into several dark squares again. Before the body of the celestial race fell, the shining block was directly corroded by the Transcendent's power and burned into ashes. In the end, the remaining 2 celestial race planets saw this scene from the corner of their eyes, and their hearts were even more frightened, and their speed was 3 points faster. But Li Feng has already chased them down, many times faster than them. In the blink of an eye, Li Feng came in front of them in an instant, and the moment he caught up, Li Feng swung 2 punches again. The void vibrates. Click, click. The surfaces of these 2 celestial members were directly crushed by Li Feng, completely turned into bright rays of light, and disappeared. So far, the 5 invading celestial race planets have been completely annihilated. From the shot to the end of the battle, the total time Li Feng spent was less than a minute. Chapter 118 I have a showdown, Ikenin #039, TBeat please subscribe, close black lens bracket. The 5 celestials planets couldn't even resist, and were killed by Li Feng without any suspense. They didn't even have a chance to escape. This scene greatly shocked all the witnesses present. At the same time, it also gave the people of Asgard a clearer understanding of Li Feng's strength. As early as when Li Feng defeated Odin, many people knew that Li Feng was a very terrifying existence. But at the moment suddenly discovered that he had been underestimated before. That is a total of 5 celestial beings. Even the existence of Odin's level is a headache to see. In the end, in front of Li Feng, he was swept away like a chicken and a dog. Also, everyone dies differently. This strength is really shocking. After getting rid of these celestials, Li Feng didn't have much ups and downs, and immediately returned to his body, taking the Transcendent's body into the system space. Although his face paled a lot, he didn't take it to heart. Slaughtering this group of so-called celestial life forms is like accidentally stepping on a few ants while walking, without any special excitement. He hovered in the air very calmly, continuing to watch Hela and their battle, not at all excited about defeating a powerful enemy. Li Feng has already seen that Hela's strength is enough to deal with this crisis, so he simply didn't make any moves, but concentrated on admiring his wife's heroic appearance. The existence of the Celestials does not actually occupy a particularly important position in the Marvel world, and it can even be said that they belong to the number 1 role. Their strength is indeed not weak, but they are vulnerable in front of the real strong. If the Universe God group under the leadership of OAA arrives, maybe Li Feng will take it seriously. But these fake celestial beings are at best gods of the same level as Odin. Nothing surprising. However, since the celestial race can survive in the universe for so long, not all of them are weak, and there are still some strong ones. No one knows exactly how many members of the celestial clan there are, but they are definitely not in the minority. But Li Feng really didn't think there was any excitement in killing 5 celestial beings. With the end of the battle on Li Feng's side, Hela and the others and Njord stopped talking nonsense and started fighting again. However, the battle situation has already tilted towards Asgard. If Njord could hold on for a while before the arrival of the Celestials, it would have completely collapsed now. His original strength is not as good as Hela, and his army is not as elite as Asgard. Ru Ling, after seeing Li Feng's formidable strength, Njord didn't even have the courage to fight. Li Feng's strength really frightened him, making him dare not go all out at all. Although Li Feng seemed indifferent, as if he didn't want to intervene in the internal disputes of the 9 realms, but who knows if it's true. What if Li Feng went berserk if he accidentally hurt Hela? Njord doesn't think he can be tougher than those 5 celestials. Therefore, this also caused Njord to be tied up in the next battle, and he didn't even dare to use his full strength. Plus his original strength is not as good as Hela, the result can be imagined. Hela played more and more easily, and at the same time understood Njord's concerns. However, Hela wasn't dissatisfied with this, but was very happy to accept it. In order to win Njord earlier, Hela even used the power of Asgard to bless herself. In this way, Njord became even more difficult to resist. Seeing that Hela was about to make a big move, Njord hurriedly stepped back hundreds of steps, and said with a cold face, "God King Hela, I admire your bravery and strength, but if you continue to fight, the result will only be a loss for both sides. Why don't we just stop here? I, the Warner Protoss, forgive you for killing your father. Let's just pretend that today's battle didn't happen, how about it? I can't beat it, but I'm still stubborn." This is what Njord looks like today. He felt more and more that this fight could not go on, and naturally he wanted to quit. He really didn't have the courage to fight Hela anymore. Opening your mouth to ask for a sum directly can be regarded as admitting defeat in a disguised form. However, as the king of God, how could Hela let him go so easily? You are the ones who want to start the war, and you are the ones who want to stop the war now. How can it be so easy? What a joke. Where do you think Asgard is? Vanir Protoss will attack if you want to, and you will have a truce if you want to truce. I tell you, it's impossible. From the moment you set foot on the land of Asgard, one side of this war will definitely fall completely and become my bone in the sea of Asgard. Hela said with a sneer, not having the slightest idea of stopping the war. Now that Asgard has a sure chance of victory, how could it be easy to stop the war? It is the most normal way to kill you while you are sick. Moreover, Hela is also counting on the victory of this battle to consolidate his authority as the God King. There is no doubt that Njord, who heard Hela's words, has put on a mask of pain in his heart at this moment. If given another chance to choose, he would never come to Asgard to start this war. Wouldn't it be nice to stay in Vanaheim honestly? Why do you have to be obsessed with pursuing the king of the 9 realms? This damned Odin, the daughters he raised are so strong, and they are still playing tricks. Moreover, it doesn't matter if Hela is powerful, after all, Hela has long been famous, and he has been psychologically prepared to some extent. Although Hela was much stronger than he thought. However, this sudden appearance of Li Feng was really too much. It looks inconspicuous, and it doesn't have any reputation in the 9 realms. But the result? Faced with 5 Qian Nuos, celestial life forms that even Odin couldn't kill, they were all smashed to pieces in less than a minute. This combat power, even if Odin is resurrected right now, can't keep up with it. Seeing the playful look on Li Feng's face not far away, and Hela's ready to go, murderous intent, Ald felt really chilled. Had he known that there was such a fairy beside Hela, he would not be so stupid to come to Asgard so arrogantly. Unfortunately, there is no chance of regret in the world. No matter how regretful he is, he still needs to pay the price for what he did at this moment. And this price is too heavy, and it is likely to drag the entire Warner Protoss into the abyss. Njord, who was thinking about this, seemed to have forgotten one thing, that is, it is a taboo to be distracted in battle. Hela also keenly grasped Njord's distraction for a moment, and then waved the night sky blade in her hand, piercing the divine body armor on the surface of Njord's god body. Chapter 119 Heroic Appearance. Please subscribe. Close black lens bracket. The black long sword in his hand directly pierced Njord's body, stabbing him through. So far, the outcome has been divided. But Njord is also an old god after all. At the critical moment when Hela attacked, he escaped the fatal point. Otherwise, this sword could directly kill him. Even if he survived by luck, his aura is extremely weak now. Stop it. Stop it. God King Hela, I surrender. I am willing to regard you as the Lord of the Nine Realms. My Warner Protoss is also willing to become a subsidiary of the Aesir Protoss and maintain the rule of the Aesir Protoss. Suffering such a heavy blow, Njord's whole body is not well. He didn't even have time to check his wounds before he had to deal with Hela's onslaught. Njord knew that if he didn't beg for mercy, the situation might be over. Don't talk about extravagantly asking for the position of the Lord of the Nine Realms. As long as you can save your own life, it would be good. So he confessed quickly, for fear that Hela would take advantage of his illness and kill him. He's already boiled an Odin to death and wouldn't mind another Hela. After hearing Njord's words, Hela sneered. Thinking about begging for forgiveness. Late. Hela's personality is somewhat similar to Li Feng's, and they are basically the type who must take revenge. Njord, a bad old man, wants to overthrow her as the king of the gods while her foundation is not stable, and his heart is really damning. Now that it is about to fail, is it possible to go to 103 to beg for mercy? Njord, you seem to have forgotten one thing. I am not Odin. I am Hela, the god of death. It is impossible for me to accept an ambitious subject, and the Vanir Protoss does not need a god king who wants to provoke war anytime and anywhere. You've been sitting in that position for so many years, it's time for a change of owner. Hela said coldly. The offensive in her hands didn't weaken at all, but became a bit fiercer. At the same time, the meaning of Hela is also very obvious. That is, Njord must die. Even if he is the patriarch of the Vanir Protoss, it doesn't matter. After killing him, Hela will support another obedient god king to manage the Vanir Protoss. Do you still want to live after rebelling against her? Go dreaming. Njord naturally also heard Hela's intentions, knowing that Hela, a ruthless person, wanted him to die. This made him very unwilling and angry. You must know that even Odin never thought of killing him. However, behind the reluctance and anger, there is more despair and helplessness. Because, even if he knew that Hela wanted his life, there was nothing he could do to stop it. Perhaps, this is his end. As if confirming Njord's conjecture, the war between Thor and the other gods of the Nine Worlds also ended soon. Although in front of Hela, Thor was pushed to the ground and beaten violently, but it is still no problem to beat other trash gods. After awakening his own potential, Thor's strength has surpassed his past self. Today's Thor is almost touching the level of the Heavenly Father. If he can get the Storm Axe, maybe he can really become another powerhouse of level Godfather. But that was much later. This war has reached the current situation, and Njord's side is gone. Obviously, Asgard is still as strong as ever. Even without Odin, it still has the strength to rule the Nine Realms. As for Njord, he already knew in his heart that he really failed this time. Not only has he been suppressed by Odin for a lifetime, but now he will die at the hands of Hela. However, after falling into a certain death situation, Njord completely calmed down his certain state, and no longer became timid. He started to forget about Li Feng's threats, and he didn't hold back any more from Hela. The beast who often falls into the trap is also the most dangerous time. The trapped beast still has the power to counterattack, that's it. When Njord realized the end of death, he no longer worried about gains and losses before, and broke out a powerful fighting power by burning his vitality. For a while, they were on par with Hela. Njord's outburst surprised Hela, but it was only a surprise. In fact, If Njord could break out earlier, it might cause Hela some trouble, but now, it can no longer affect the overall situation. Hela is like a ruthless hunter. Che has calculated all the struggling roots of the prey. Even Njord's sudden outburst only delayed his death. Soon, as that powerful force gradually faded away, Njord fell into a real desperate situation. Finally, under the last attack of Hela's tens of thousands of night sky blades, the divine body defense on his body was shattered. Gods without divine body defenses are just like people on earth, but a shredded piece of paper. Njord was beheaded by Hela with a sword and died completely. Before coming to Asgard, Njord had great ambitions, intending to become the Lord of the Nine Realms like Odin and rule the Nine Realms for tens of thousands of years. In fact, he did, like Odin, die at the hands of Hela. Njord is dead. All Vanir Protoss soldiers, you should stop. This God King knows that you are involuntary and have no choice, so I won't blame you and others. As long as you give up your resistance, I will pardon you. Otherwise, you will all be buried with the souls of Asgard. After beheading Njord's head, Hela's face remained unchanged, while holding Njord's head, standing in the sky and shouting. Simply heroic. Hearing Hela's words, the battlefield below unexpectedly quieted down instantly. Everyone looked at the Valkyrie like Hela, and at the same time saw Njord's head in her hand. Next second, a burst of huge amounts of cheers sounded. The people of Asgard chanted praises, which truly recognized Hela's status. To the glory of Asgard. To the glory of the gods of the north. The cheers and morale of the people of Asgard reached their peak, and they surrounded the invaders who did not choose to surrender like wolves and tigers. Asgard was originally a warlike race, not to mention that its rusticity has reached its peak now. As for the soldiers led by Njord, all of them were blank-eyed at the moment. If you look closely, you can even see bewilderment and fear in the eyes of these people. When the two armies are fighting, the most desperate thing is that the leader of one is killed by the other side. This blow to morale is extremely fatal. Moreover, Hela directly and forcefully beheaded Njord under the situation of being attacked from both sides. This made the soldiers of the Warner Protoss fear Hela even more. Even with the fear of other Asgard people. At this moment, the people of the Warner Protoss finally recalled the years when they were once dominated by Asgard, and recalled the divine appearance of Odin when he came to their Protoss territory forcefully. That was the most glorious time for Odin, and everyone in the Nine Realms bowed their heads and surrendered. Now Hela uses her strength to let everyone understand. Chapter 120 Entering the God and #039's Burial Garden again open black lens bracket subscribe, close black lens bracket. After a few days have passed since the original battle. After Hela beheaded Njord's proud head, the war completely lost its suspense. Asgard was victorious, and all the invaders died on the land of Asgard. Hela also relied on her perfect performance in this battle to secure her position as the God King and at the same time grasp a lot of people's hearts. Definitely, part of the reason is also because of Ji-Feng's existence. The impact that these two couples have brought to the people of Asgard is really not small. For example, no one in Asgard will ever question Hela's position as the God King. Also today, Li Feng approached Hela and proposed a rather special matter. He planned to go to the so-called God's Burial Garden again. Hela was very curious about this proposal, but Li Feng didn't explain anything, so she didn't ask. The trust between the two was already very mature, so she didn't worry that the other party would hide something unacceptable from her. But Hela still told Li Feng that she would wait at the entrance of the God's Burial Garden, and if she encountered any danger, she would go in and help as soon as possible. Li Feng naturally has no opinion on this. The body of the Transcendent is currently a big event that destroys the time node for the entire Marvel Universe. If he exposes it prematurely, it may not be a good thing. There is also an existence called OAA in the universe. That's the guy Li Feng fears the most right now. While the green light was flashing, Hela opened the dungeon entrance again, summoned the ceiling formation of the God's Burial Garden, and watched Li Feng plunge into it with her own eyes. This is a land of endless chaos, just like the last time Li Feng came here. The reason why he wants to enter the God's burial garden is because this place is connected to a certain spatial dimension, or an unknown universe. In his cognition, there is actually no critical connection between the unknown universe and the known universe. If you want to go to that place, you will definitely need some powerful strength. Moreover, not all creatures know how to go to that mysterious land. In fact, except for the creatures that have existed since the beginning of the known universe, such as OAA, the boss of the universe god group, the 5 creation gods, and the life court, other creatures have no idea that such a thing exists at all. Their definition of the unknown universe has only 2 words. Chaos. Yes, only these 2 words. As for how the Transcendence Protoss was formed, Li Feng didn't understand in his heart. These cosmic elders might know something, but obviously they refused to reveal it, and they should have chosen to hide it in their hearts. Think about it carefully. If the announcement of the unknown universe is good news for the creatures of the known universe, why should they hide it? Obviously, there are some unimaginable horrors in it. The Tree of Life is located in an unknown galaxy in an unknown universe. In the known universe, human beings can use the cosmic star map to locate the reference object, and then find out the specific coordinates. But the unknown universe is equivalent to having a blind eye, knowing nothing, and even the marginal file size cannot be defined. Although the so-called God Burial Garden is a place dedicated to burying the gods of the 9 realms, everything seems to have changed since the race beyond the gods entered here. Therefore, Li Feng does not intend to explore around this dangerous place. He is too lazy to spend time and energy doing some meaningless things. Li Feng pressed the center of his eyebrows with one hand, and directly summoned the Transcendence body. If I'm right. 2 seconds later, he left his body behind, and through the power of the Transcendent, he built a white protective shield for the body, which can avoid any damage. Afterwards, he took out the purple spar given to him by the leading white man, and filled the bottle with the power of the Transcendent. Find the Tree of Life for me. With a low growl, a divine light shot out from his eyes, directly smashing it to pieces. In an instant, countless memory fragments drilled into Li Feng's soul body along the white light. When he finished digesting these memory fragments, he took a deep breath. The so-called Tree of Life is the Tree of the 9 Worlds. In the memory of the Transcendent, he saw the towering tree. On this big tree, there is a totem of the 9 realms. It was born in the Chaos universe, and the 9 realms are its branches. So, where is the exact location? 0. Seeking flowers. After Li Feng got his own answer, he tried again to mobilize the power of the Transcendent to explore the exact location of the Tree of Life. A dazzling white light gradually condenses into a whirlpool of white mist in front of the eyes, and the picture in it seems to be guiding something, both bright and dark. Li Feng stretched out his fingers tentatively, and flicked a trace of energy into it. To his surprise, no matter how much energy, once sucked into the vortex, it will cut off all contact with him. In other words, the place below may be in existence like a black hole, which can devour all matter. Li Feng hesitated for 2 seconds, and tried to flick it away with his hands again, but was wrapped in a huge amount of suction force, and his whole body fell into the white mist. .00. And as his body disappeared in this unknown dimension, in an unknown galaxy, a gray-white figure, as if aware of something, suddenly raised his head. He murmured, "Sure enough, is he going to that place? In this case, ellipsis 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 quote. It's time to notify that guy." An ancient rune led Li Feng's body, which turned into a stream of light, forming a curtain of light around the sky, illuminating the entire galaxy where Li Feng was. The dazzling light occupied the line of sight, and the galaxy where the Tree of Life was located was actually projected in the light curtain. There is no planet there, only a towering tree with luxuriant branches and leaves, towering into the sky and dancing with shadows. The roots and branches of the tree have no entity, just like the willow tree on the earth. There are countless phantoms, which seem to be formed by the gathering of energy bodies. Even, its existence is about as big as a solar system. The hanging branches and leaves are like lives being conceived one by one, and the soul fluctuations are clearly visible. However, Li Feng, with his venomous eyes, could tell in an instant that there was a dead and silent aura emanating from the roots of the tree. Usually, this kind of breath can only be seen in the elderly in their twilight years. Undoubtedly, this is one of the reasons why the transcendent Krotos suffered exhaustion. He took a deep breath, stepped out with one foot, and got into the light curtain. Whoosh! The light curtain engulfed his figure completely, and all the light dissipated almost instantly at this moment.